Hello.
Hi.
Still waiting for our quorum. I'm going to pause. Hi, Joe. Hi, Lee.
Howdy, howdy. So you in the conference room, Erin?
I am. And
Just you and Maria?
well, actually, I got in here to set up the hybrid meeting, and the technology is telling me that it needs to be updated and cannot function. So
I think we heard
I'm
that 5
here
months ago.
but this is the new, and it actually works very well. I just would have been nice to know that it needed an update. So Maria is logging on from inside her office, and I will stay in the conference room in case anyone from the public comes. But it's just
Very
me
nice
and
of
my
you.
laptop so far.
Hello.
Hi, we can hear you. Does your
Yeah,
camera work or no?
I'm trying to get the portable one to work so I don't have to have 3 screens open on my desk.
Yeah.
And it won't work.
Did you go to your video feed and select a camera?
I did.
Okay. Then we just get a still shot, I guess.
I know I don't even have a, well, I see black.
Yeah. Is your camera open on your laptop?
No, but if I open up the laptop, I don't have room to like write anything because I won't have room on my desk. Hold on. Get ready. Here it goes. There it goes. But now it's weird because I can't put it somewhere.
We're looking at the side of you.
I know because it doesn't come up on my, I want it to come up in my little portable.
Either way, we can
My
hear
little
you.
portable fan.
What time is it? It is 7. We have
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4.
And I think,
There we
and
go.
maybe- right, and maybe Martin, but we have quorum at 4,
I don't
right?
believe Martin is coming.
Okay,
So I can hit record if you're ready, Madam Chair.
yes, that would be great.
Okay.
All right, so I'd like to open up the Inland Wetlands and Watercourse Agency meeting for August 7th, 2023 at 7 p.m. We have our members are Anna Loss, Joe Boudreau, Lee Schumacher, and me, Kayla Friedenberg. And it looks like we can head straight into our agenda, where our first item is a public hearing for application 23-39 Longshore Lane, although that is being tabled.
Yes, so I can update you on the status of our public hearings. We, in the agency, intended to have 3 public hearings this evening. 2339 Longshore Lane, 2344 128 Chittenden Field Lane, and 2346 47 Deepwood Drive. And due to a notice defect at the town's error, the legal notice did not run in a timely fashion. And so the applications would need to be tabled to the September meeting. That being said, item number 1, Longshore Lane 23-39 is requesting to be tabled to September. So we could start with that one, and then I can give you an update, or Maria can give you an update on the next two.
Okay. So I assume we just need a motion to table this.
Yes.
Okay,
Well, I'll make a motion that application 23-39 be continued without discussion to the September 11, 2023 meeting.
Yes, it's a table. We can't even open it, Joe.
Oh,
so it's not continue, so the.
okay.
it
It's a
can't-
table.
Continue the opening to September 11th. Table. Yeah, I work
Thank
with an
you.
attorney. She hates the word table. So I will say table, public hearings opening to September 11th.
All right, and it looks like Lee has seconded that a couple of times. Great. Is there
Thanks,
any
Lee.
discussion? All right, no discussion. All in favor of tabling application 23-39 until September 11th, raise your hand, say aye. Or nod.
Aye.
Great. All are in favor. Okay, so Erin, would you like to update us on, or Maria, on the next two?
Sure. So
Sequential order.
the applicant is here. Travis Gulick is here on behalf of the property owners, Douglas and Kathy Chittenden, for 128 Chittenden Field Lane. This application at your last meeting was deemed to be a significant activity because it was a proposal was a detached structure, and it was located within the boundary of the inland wetlands. So based on the information that was proposed, staff notified the applicant with our standard significant activity letter. You scheduled it for your walk meeting and went out to the site. Since that time, we have received a revised application, a revised site plan that shows the detached structure closer, is it to the east, closer, I believe, to the tennis courts on the property. And the applicant, and Travis can explain this further, is seeking, I guess, reconsideration as to whether or not the agency would now look at this revised location and no longer deem it a significant activity. Are you willing to entertain that now?
So the agenda was not a typo. They're proposing a building within inland wetlands.
That's what was originally approved. Excuse me, not approved, proposed. Yes.
Okay.
It was actually straddling the wetland line and in the inland wetlands. It is
Right.
now since, and the applicant can clarify now how far from the inland wetland line this new structure is proposed.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful is to understand how far it is away. I know some of us were on the site walk. So, but go ahead and maybe describe a little of where it is now proposed.
Sure. Is it possible? I don't know with not being publicized correct with the can we show the updated drawing on the screen, or is that not allowed?
Do you have it?
I have, if you could pop it up, it'll be quicker, Aaron, probably. It's probably right in front of you.
It's not.
So this
I
is,
could do
this
it.
is
You want me to do
public
it?
hearing, right?
This,
You know,
the original approval was deemed a public hearing, a significant activity that requires a public hearing. The applicant has submitted a new proposal, a revised proposal, and is seeking clarification if the agency will still consider this relocated structure a significant activity. If so, you can then table that public hearing to September, or
Okay.
if you think it's not, then you can ask for a site walk, you can talk about it now, or you can table it again September. It's up to you.
Mhm.
Okay. Maria, you said you had that drawing
No,
available?
actually, I don't.
I
can't
could pop it up. I
The
have it.
updated
Thank you,
one.
Mike.
Yep, let me see. Let me see here.
That's a good one.
See. Give me 1 second, guys.
Oh, wait, I have it now. If you want
Yep,
it.
dated 7/18.
Yes.
It's loading.
Okay.
Is everybody able to see that drawing that's on the screen now?
yes.
Okay, so first of all, good evening. For the record, my name is Michael Harkin. I'm a professional engineer and principal of Harkin Engineering, located at 78 Wolf Hollow Lane in the town of Killingworth, Connecticut. Here tonight on behalf of Gulick and Company, Travis Gulick, who's the owner of the company, is also on. And again, it's for 128 Chittenden Fields Road. So previously, the plan was submitted based on what the client, Travis Gulick, and the owner of the property wished to have the boathouse in this vicinity, which is straddling this wetlands line. Okay, it's really important to note that there's actually two wetlands lines shown on the property. This original wetlands line that my cursor is going across, which was done in 2006 for a wetlands activity permit with the town. That was 2006. In 2023, this year, we sent our soil scientist, Rich Snarsky, out, and the new line is in this area as shown here. Okay, significantly more, about almost 0.15 acres more. So what's basically happening is the lawn area of the site is basically mowed up until the old wetlands line. So this area in here is all existing mowed lawn, but it has been deemed an inland wetlands by Rich Snarsky. So previously, we were straddling this new wetlands line, which was basically 2 feet off of Rich Snarsky's line and approximately 20 feet off the old line. Pursuant to the site walk and rethinking things with the client and the owner, they've decided to move it as far away from the wetlands as they possibly can. They have a septic system here, so it's moved the closest they can towards the street, and without being in front of the existing house to be zoning compliant. They're 12 feet off the tennis court, and they're situated in between the tennis court and the deck of the main house that's in this vicinity. So the new structure, instead of 2 feet, is now 17 feet to the new wetlands line and 64 feet from the edge of the lawn where the old wetlands line is. So there's a huge difference between 2 feet of where it is and now 17 feet. But you can see that wetlands line goes virtually, the new one, right up towards the back of the patio and into the lawn area significantly, and approximately 12 to 15 feet off the tennis court. So with that being said, my client, Travis Gulick, had submitted a letter last week saying the old location was a significant activity deemed by the commission. Now we have it in a completely new location, which is the furthest we can possibly put it from the wetlands. And does this new location and drawing does the commission deem that a significant activity? And like the town planner had mentioned, that if it is a significant activity deemed by this commission, then we'll go through the process of notifying the neighbors for the next meeting and do the public hearing in accordance with the zoning regulations. If it's not, then we would like to discuss it tonight and answer any questions that the commission has. So I guess the first thing, correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron, is the commission has to decide whether this new location is a significant activity, correct?
Yes, and one question that could assist the agency in making that determination, your note 5 on this plan highlights the area, additional area within the inland wetland boundary that calls out for the removal of debris and existing foundation. Can you explain what that activity is? That still proposed, and what does that entail?
So what we had asked for is right now within the old wetlands, the 2006 wetlands, there used to be a shed placed right in the wetlands. With storms and everything else. Right now, the remains are there. A bunch of wood, some of the foundation debris, basically strewn inside that wetlands. Now, my client, as part of the project, said, hey, well, let's go in there and at least try to clean it up if we can. Now, if that's going to be an issue with the commission, then, right now we're proposing to clean up that wetlands, do all the work by hand, which we can do it by hand because it's small rubble, 2x4s and things of that nature. If the commission deems that limited impact is a significant activity, then we'll leave it in place and we won't go in there and do it. But as of right now, we're proposing to do that because we think it's good for the environment to remove all that material.
Okay, I guess my question was whether or not it was a foundation that required you to, get a machine in there or break it up or what.
And it
what
was,
that was.
this is Travis Kulik. The foundation really, was an old place, like I think maybe a couple cinder blocks, that's really it. No
Okay.
machines have to go in there and dig it up or anything like that.
Just
the thing
hand
was-
carry out.
The
It's
hand
all
carrying
hand
out.
carry out. Yeah.
That was the whole aspect, we're going to build something in that corner of the property being so close. We're going to, have to do some landscaping and things like that. That we were just gonna, well, while we're there doing that, why don't we just take all that stuff out? But now that we're moving the building all the way over, we can leave it and just not deem that, a significant activity and deal with that another time if we wanted to. So that's kind of the process on that.
Okay,
And sorry
So
about my
if-
2-year-old.
pardon?
Mike. Oh,
I said, sorry
Mike,
about my
what is-
2-year-old pointing at everything.
Mike, what is note 7 and 10? Is that a silt fence in the wall?
Yes, sir. So we're proposing to put a silt fence line from the back of the deck virtually to the tennis court fence, and then staked hay bales as needed. But those of you that were on the sidewalk know that it's really, really a vegetated area. It's grass and established lawn. The boathouse itself is actually built on piers. They're going to probably helical pile with the machine, so there's limited disturbance. It is in a FEMA AE 12 zone, so it's elevated. So the upper portion of this boathouse, the lower portion is to store kayaks and things of that nature. The upper portion is a habitable living space. It doesn't have a shower, but it does have room for, there is a bathroom in there, and there is kind of like an area that they can sit or sleep. But there is no shower or kitchen or anything like that in there.
Okay, so it seems, so you've moved it and, I think we should take this first step at a time. So I think for us, the commission, I think our first step is to decide if, it's still a significant activity or if it's not. And, we've pulled it out of the wetlands. For those on the sidewalk, it's a pretty flat site. It is mostly lawn back in the back or between the house and the tennis court. And for note number 5, if this is indeed getting that material out by hand, then no machines are going to, sounds like no machines are going to be used to pull that material out. So given that information for the agency members, what are your thoughts with respect? So it was deemed significant because, according to our regulations, once you are in the wetland and modifying a wetland, that there's, it can trigger significant activity, which is what we deemed last time. So we are now with a different location. What do people think with respect to the activity?
Feel they backed up to an alternative that's a really, really big change. And so I commend them for the relocation. So I think the building itself, not a significant activity, especially with the silt fence and the hay bales there. And I think, as Travis said, if it's hand carried shed debris out of the wetland area and they just rake it out behind them, I feel they've moved themselves from the public hearing realm.
All right, Anna or Lee?
I agree. I don't think it's a significant activity anymore, because it's outside of the wetlands and it's in the upland.
Okay. And Lee, did you have any comments? Oh, we can't hear you.
Your microphone's not working, Lee. I thought you called in. That's an option. Can you dial the number with your phone? Can give it to you in the chat.
I take it they're calling it I'm sorry, I missed the site walk. So they're calling it a boathouse. Not that there's a pond nearby, it's just that's where they're gonna keep their boats on site and they drive them to other places.
It's really just like, they're right on the water, so, and it's all family compound. It's just like one of those, kayaks that you're just on rollers, that you just roll down to the
Okay.
beach type of thing. That was just kind of our name for it, instead of like a carriage house or something else, kind of more,
Yep.
just working with the client on it.
How elevated are the first floors? I see the house was on piers.
Yeah, it's gonna be a finished floor. Elevation 14 is the finished floor since the AE 12. And it's about 6.5 feet to 7 feet from the grade up. So there's a lot of
Okay.
storage underneath that's gonna remain pretty open.
Yep.
Just kind of.
Yep.
It matches the house. And we actually just raised one closer to the water too on the same street.
All right.
What's
So
the main?
I assume you don't need to
What was
walk
the
this
main
again?
road that Chittenfield's off of? Chittenden.
It's
What
off
was
Neck, it's off Neck
Neck.
Road.
Okay, yep. This is me ad-libbing.
Yeah, I don't think we need to walk the site again.
Is
for
there
this
any
cha-
additional information that the agency is looking for?
I think it's ready for the regular meeting portion of the next agenda.
Yeah, so, or is Lee still? I mean, yeah,
Is
He's
he,
calling
is he
in.
the phone number?
Yep, I got him. Hold on, let's bring him.
all this technology.
And modern technology.
Are you this 860 number, Lee? 395? Lee, is this you on the phone? Can you unmute?
How about now?
Yes.
Yay, there you
Yay.
are. Okay.
All right.
So tell
Now
us your,
Now it has to be a short meeting so much doesn't run out of juice, but no, I'm just kidding.
So your thoughts on the significant activity?
Say that again? Oh, no,
Um,
I think it's a significant activity.
You do think or do not?
Do not think it's a significant activity.
All right. So do we have to vote on that then, I assume?
yes, you
Okay.
should take a vote on that.
All right, I'll make a motion that application 23-44, 128 Chittenden Field Lane is not deemed a significant activity anymore. Does anybody
I
want
will
to second?
second, I'll second that motion. This is Joe.
Okay. Any further discussion? No. Okay, all in favor of this motion, raise your hand, say aye, nod. All right, it's
Aye.
unanimous. Okay, so so we can move on and I guess ask questions about the application. So
Do you, yeah, so I guess my question would be, staff has not prepared any draft resolutions for you or anything on this. We weren't sure which way you were going to go.
Right.
So at this point, you can, if you're looking for additional information from the applicant, that's fine. Otherwise, you can either have your presentation now or table it until September and staff would have resolution drafted for you.
okay, I don't have any questions. I think it'll be simpler going forward to take off the 2006 inland wetland. I understand that it's there to explain why these changes happened, but because you have a 2023, and I'm not saying you have to do it for this one, but I think it'll just be easier because we're going to have to go with the 2023 inland wetland. And, as we've talked about before in these meetings, wetlands are dynamic and changing. And so it's probably not surprising that it's changed. So, just any other applications, I think it would be simpler to take that off. It gets confusing. And it's not valid anymore. I don't have any other questions that would need to be clarified right now. Does anybody else?
No, either
Just
do
one
I.
thing.
Go
One
ahead,
thing,
Joe.
Kia, I know the packet was almost 800 pages. Was there an
Mm.
elevation drawing of the boathouse?
Yes, I can put that up on my screen. Give me
Oh,
one
that
second.
it can wait, Mike, till
Okay.
next month.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's no problem. It was submitted. So we submitted the packet with the original survey. Aaron had requested that, so we did give that. We have the architecturals for the boathouse for you guys, and then we have the
Okay.
revised plan that we submitted.
Okay.
Perfect.
Anna, did you have any questions? That
Go ahead.
no, go ahead. Just it's your turn.
I'm I'm looking at some of the notes. If this is going to be, I guess, if we're going to talk about this in September, should I ask those questions now or wait till September?
If it's something that the applicant will have time to think about and answer, if it's going to be helpful, I think that's fine. I mean, we don't want to have a long, I mean, since we're going to come back to this, I think any questions now would just be, that could be helpful for the applicant are totally fine to ask.
Yeah, if you have any
Oh.
comments that would help us adjust the plan better, we'd be happy
Yeah.
to hear them now so we can make those adjustments potentially.
No, I would just say for my thoughts for where you're going to be doing that restoration, you're going to remove that old foundation and whatnot. Maybe try and give a step-by-step of how you're going to do that. Just so we don't, it's because it's work in the wetland. We don't want to deem it a significant activity because it's restoration work. So the more detail I think that we have on that, we have more solid ground to approve that without being significant activity.
Sure, we can put a construction sequence together for that work, specifically for that work, which details out, have a pre-construction meeting with the town, have them go in there by hand, remove it by hand, load it into the back of a truck or a dumpster, and rake anything out and then let it go in. We could do that, not a problem.
And I saw there were some notes on dewatering. They do say not within a water course or wetland. I just want to make sure that it's not directly adjacent to the wetland as well.
No, those notes on there are exactly from the DEP manual, all those on there. So those are all exactly from the erosion control manual and the requirements. We put that in there on all the projects next to a wetlands, states where you can fuel up a truck, where you can, any dust removal. They're both
Okay.
just general nature.
Okay.
Okay, Lee, did you have any?
Nope.
Okay.
No, not good until September for sure.
Okay,
All right, guys, we'll see you next month.
great. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks, Travis.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we have application 23-46-47 Deepwood Drive. This is the same deal. This was deemed a significant activity. They wanted to put an above ground pool, and about half of it was in what has now been what they had delineated as inland wetland. So, that kind of triggered that. And they have since, much like the previous applicant, relocated the above ground pool to get it out of the inland wetlands. And so, we do have someone. So,
Okay,
yes,
yes,
we have
So-
the same deal. We need to decide if, we can take away that significant activity designation or not.
yes, very similar actually, with the wetland line as well, Kealoha, that the information that, and this is a base of a professional site plan, but the homeowner has amended the drawing and drawn to scale and measured in the field where the field delineated inland wetland flags were. And I believe that was also Richard Snarsky who did the field delineation. And so Tyler measured off of the house and other structures that were identified on the survey, and initially proposed a 20-foot round pool, above ground pool that straddled the inland wetland line. So after the site walk and at staff's recommendation, Tyler and his wife explored some alternative locations for a number of reasons, to simplify the application process, to reduce some of the fees associated with, the application as well, and the hiring of professionals, and wanted to see if the agency would entertain this alternate location on the side of the patio area, outside of the inland wetland line, although adjacent to the inland wetland line. And so Maria does have that plan. We can pull it up. And Tyler, if you wanted to explain anything else on that, generally what your revised request is. And again, this is a little bit confusing as well, because the earlier wetland line is shown on this map as well. And so it does look like the pool straddles the inland wetland. However, if you look closer and you follow circles 4, 5, 6, and then angle up to 7, you'll see that it is just adjacent to flag 6, where this above ground pool would be. And so I guess maybe Tyler, you can speak to this 30 by 15, this overall area. Does this include all of your excavation? That's your closest limit of disturbance there? Or
Yeah,
what?
so, yeah, you guys can hear me, correct?
Yes.
How are you? I'm Tyler Disbrow, by the way. Nice to meet you guys. Yeah, so flag 6 over there, I just butted it up to that the closest I can, because aesthetically, I think that's the best location for what we're dealing with here, because it is kind of on the side yard. It's not our top choice, but we're willing to go there, given that it's not a significant activity. And I went off a 30 by 15 pool as well. That's just what Aquatic recommended. That's the standard size. They do have smaller and they do have bigger, but with all the measurements there, I think aesthetically that's the best spot. I'm willing to shove it more towards the street if need be, if it's too close to number 6, which I measured about 6 feet off that flag. But like I said, aesthetically, I just want to butt it up as close as I can without actually being inside the wetland.
And to Aaron's question, so this is above ground. How much disturbance is going to be there to get this in? Like, are you going to bleed over into the actual in the wetland to place it?
No, so anything, it's actually pretty level ground and already there, all grass and gardening beds already. I'm sure they will have to bring in, I'm sure, a little topsoil just to level it out, but anything that they do dig up, if any, we will remove off the property. Other than that, it's just your basic above ground oval pool.
Above ground pools this size lately, I've seen they're actually partly excavated, so they may be like 2 or 3 feet into the ground. Is this one of those types?
They said about 1.5 feet.
You would grade down or sink the pool a 1.5 feet?
I'm willing to do anything to get a pool, so whatever the commission recommends is the best idea.
So I guess in staff's opinion, I mean, so we don't have any detail on this plan as is that shows any limits of disturbance or erosion control, something like that, like a line of silt fence. I guess the general question, and Tyler can amend the drawing, the general question, I guess, is if a proposal comes before you with a limit of disturbance, roughly 6 feet off a flagged wetland line, is the agency still considering that a significant activity, or something that can be handled as a just a general regulated activity, where you ask for some additional information as far as construction access and limits of disturbance and, restoration around that. And then I think some other details if that's the direction you want to go, then some of those details could be added ahead of next month. If you still feel you want the additional wetland impact analysis, then that's where Tyler would have to get professionals involved to help him.
Right. So, and I mean, I guess the line of questioning that we had was just trying to clarify that even if it's 6 feet off, that it's still at least pulled out of the wetland. Right.
Right,
mean,
yeah.
That's what we're trying to just clarify is that, and yes, it sounds like we definitely are going to need more information on exactly what's going to be happening in ENS controls. Okay. Well, for those of you who weren't on the site walk, a lot of this backyard is planted and manicured, even, you know, with the new wetland line. So it's disturbed, I guess. And it's pretty flat, as I recall. So if we just think about our significant activity, and previously this again was right in the backyard and straddled the new wetland line, which was significant. How are people feeling about this being still deemed a significant activity, or do you feel like we can withdraw that label, that designation?
Was the stream running pretty good the day you went out there?
It's pretty wooded.
Mm.
And there's a lot of vegetation in there. I honestly,
Okay.
so we were out there in July. It wasn't, no, I mean, the ground in the backyard was sopping wet. It was soaking. And we've had a lot of rain, but it wasn't surprising that this had been designated inland wetland. And there's skunk cabbage and there's different things. But the stream itself wasn't like a raging torrent or anything. At least as I recall.
Well, I'm just, because I remember we put that couple off of Overbrook through the ringer when they had a site plan that had no wetland delineation. And here we're looking at one where there's a big change from what's on the map. I would feel better with, like, the last application, this wetland line removed and the most accurate one placed on there, done by a professional, more than just maybe 6 samples. And then I think this gentleman maybe think about moving it toward the brick patio. Maybe could the brick patio, half of it be sacrificed just to get it out from 2 feet from the wetland? It's just, there's alternatives if maybe the brick patio could be sacrificed a little bit. But then I
Right.
wasn't at the house. I don't know if there's a nice wall around it and things like that.
Well,
But it
There's
is,
it's pretty detailed. I mean, it's pretty finished.
Yep.
It's pretty finished.
There's
And I
a
think that's
pergola on the patio also.
Yeah, it's
There's a
It's fit-
structure on it.
yeah, that is a non-trivial thing. But that is, you know, those, I think we don't have to link those questions to the significant activity unless you're linking those to the significant activity. I think initially we just want to decide, it's,
yeah,
it's
I think
out.
it's significant where it's proposed right here, Kia, especially without knowing exactly where the wetlands are, because it looks like it's
So-
2 feet from the pool. Although
Okay,
he said
so-
6.
Yes, I think there's a question as far as the scale to the on this drawing as far as the proximity to the flagged wetland line. However, the wetlands were delineated by a professional soil scientist, and there are 10 flags on the property, Joe. So I did want to clarify that those marks are from Rich Snarsky. They were
Okay,
field
see.
located by the homeowner, but the new
I
wetland
see.
delineation was done by a professional. So
Okay,
that,
I see the 10. Yep.
yeah,
So it's even worse.
And the 8 is in the middle of where the old pool was. Yeah, right in the
Yep.
center there.
Yep.
So it does kind of shoot up directly to the 9
Okay.
from the 7 there.
And the deck is shown at 14 by 20, the same size as the pool, which is 15 by 30. So the scale is off.
Yeah, so it is that part is off. I mean, and that's obviously can be adjusted or whatever. I mean, it more comes down to is this significant as defined in our regulations, or is this a regulated activity that is not within a wetland? Because it's not with it, as now it's not within the wetland, or is this a regulated activity that we then deal with as a regulated activity? Without,
Aaron, could you read that definition? I just don't have the regs in front of me.
Of what a significant activity is?
Yeah, because that could help pull this
It's
off
any-
the
Sure.
public
It's
hearing
any
list.
activity, including but not limited to the following activities which may have a major effect or significant impact on wetlands or watercourses. Any deposition or removal of material in or from a regulated area which will or may have a perceptible effect on the regulated area or on another part of the inland wetland or watercourses system, whether at or outside the area for which the activity is proposed, or any area or any activity, which perceptibly changes the natural channel or may inhibit the natural dynamics of a watercourse system. 3, any activity which perceptibly diminishes the natural capacity of an inland wetland or watercourse to support desirable fisheries, wildlife, or other biological life, prevent flooding, supply water, assimilate waste, facilitate drainage, provide recreation or open space, or perform other functions. 4, any activity which is likely to cause or has the potential to cause measurable turbidity, siltation, or sedimentation in a wetland or watercourse. 5, any activity which causes measurable diminution of flow of a natural watercourse or groundwater levels of the regulated regulated area. Any activity which is likely to cause or has the potential to cause pollution of a wetland or watercourse, or any activity which damages or destroys unique wetland or watercourse areas or has or areas having such demonstrable scientific or educational value. Did that help, Joe?
Oh, very much. I think for the most part, it doesn't qualify as a significant activity, and as long as it doesn't blow out, it shouldn't be a pollution threat. So I could see it taken off the public hearing status as a significant activity.
okay. Lee and Anna, do you have,
Yeah, I think since it's outside of the inland wetlands, I don't think we need to deem it as a significant activity, but I do think the applicant should consider anticipating what's going to happen at the next meeting, moving it further away from the wetland.
okay,
I would agree with that. I think while it's not within the wetlands, because you have treated pool water, a side effect of pools is splashing. The ground itself out there is quite damp, so your drainage is pretty poor. So your sheet flow run will most likely go directly into the water course there. So if we can, move that maybe 4 or 6 more feet, to the, up a little bit towards the driveway, I think that would get rid of that concern and keep it not a significant activity.
okay. All right, well, I'm gonna get my agenda and make a motion that okay, sorry, I had to get my numbers up. I'm gonna move that application 23-46, 47 Deepwood Drive not be deemed a significant activity given the new location of the proposed pool.
I'll second that.
Also, okay,
Okay. Any other discussion before we vote? Okay, all in favor, raise your hand, say aye, nod.
Aye.
All right, that is great. So I think for the applicant, for Tyler, I think what you're hearing is there's still some concern that it's close to the wetland, and that for next month, we'll need to understand more about how the pool's going to be, what disturbance is being proposed, how far, if you can move it farther away, and how you're going to control for erosion and silt during the installation process. So that kind of detail. And Aaron, anything else?
Just to clarify, does the agency need to see this again? Do you need to go out to the site?
Oh, I don't, but Joe, you haven't been, right? Does anybody need to go out?
I don't, I've
Well,
been there.
If Tyler wants to just take a photo or two of the yard from the
Okay.
deck, that's fine if he wants to share them.
That would be great, because I don't think everybody had made the last, obviously not everyone made the last site walk. And that it will be helpful, I think, Joe, for you to see it's to see the
Yep.
site. Is there anything
Tyler?
else?
Again, I don't think, can we get a plan that doesn't have the old inland wetland lines on it?
I put that note down as well. Yep.
And
Yeah.
the scale, getting everything to scale, so we have a better sense. But I think really understanding the process and what's going to be involved in putting the pool in will be really helpful.
Okay. So staff can continue to work with Tyler on that in preparation for hopefully action at next month's meeting.
Yes.
Tyler, did you have any specific questions for the agency tonight, or otherwise
no.
Maria and I can follow up with you during this week to get you ready?
No, all questions been answered, and I'll talk to the pool installers and see if they can get more details about the installation.
Okay, great.
Well, thank you
All right.
very much for moving. I know it's not an ideal position, but thank you for being flexible.
Appreciate it. Thank you for considering it.
All right, we'll see you next month then, Tyler.
Take care, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so that brings us to our regular meeting items. So I'm just going to step through Aaron and Maria, unless there's a reason not to. I can just go in order, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. I know we've just had different things happen. So our first regular meeting application is 23-12-175 Fort Path Road. This is one that we've talked about a few times to get more information about some of the modifications that were made and to approve them after the fact. And I think our last request was to get the as-built and understand exactly what happened with respect to stormwater on the property. And I guess we have Mr. McKeon for the applicant.
Yes, yes, thank you. Excuse me. My name is Chris McKeon. I represent the applicant. My office address is 900 Chapel Street in New Haven, Connecticut. I also live in Madison at 31 Hotchkiss Lane. With me tonight is Michael Harkin, who is the site engineer, as well as David Milano, representing the applicant. Last month, I was before you to inform you that as a result of the May 1st agency meeting, where an as-built, a detailed as-built of what site work had been done on the site be prepared for your information. Mr. Harkin received that survey, I believe it was the Friday before 4th of July weekend, and hadn't had the opportunity to review and analyze it and prepare new updated drainage calculations. Since the July meeting when I was last before you, Mr. Harkin has in fact done that. He has completed new drainage calculations and an analysis of the modifications and has reviewed them with the town planner as well as the town engineer. And what we're requesting tonight is an approval of the application for modification of the regulated activity permit issued, I believe, back in 2018 originally. Don't quote me on that date, but not only to approve the site work which has been completed to date, but also to enable the applicant to develop the final phase of this project, which is building number 3, which is on the drawing board, or actually ready to be commenced, provided the agency has reviewed the information and is satisfied with it. And Mr. Harkin will detail that information and the drawings he submitted and reports as a result of his review of that updated survey. So I will turn it over to Mr. Harkin.
Good evening, everybody. Again, for the record, my name is Michael Harkin. I'm a professional engineer and principal of Harkin Engineering, located at 78 Wolf Hollow Lane in the town of Killingworth, Connecticut. Again, here tonight on behalf of my client, 175 Fort Path Road LLC, Mr. David Milano, for their project entitled the Madison Small Business Park. We've done a lot of work on this in the last 3 weeks. As Attorney McKeon had stated, we were waiting for the site survey. At the May meeting, I told you it would probably take 6 to 8 weeks with all the detail that was requested to be on it. We do have that survey. I will put it up on the board. The original surveyor of record, who is Mr. Todd Anderson of Anderson Engineering and Surveying, performed that survey. It was pretty detailed. If you may remember, you asked for existing building locations, spot shots and grading throughout the site, the as-built of the detention basin, as-built of all the storm drainage, pipe sizes, inverts and location, all the rock walls, the limit of disturbance and the limit of fill. So we do have that for you tonight. I will pop that on my screen real quick. See if I can find that. Bear with me here. So we have a slew of drawings that we've prepared for the commission tonight, and complete survey will be the first one that we show up on the screen. There's a lot of information on it, so it'll take a little bit to load up. All right, can everybody see that survey?
Yes.
Okay. So as you can see, there's a lot of information on there. It took 6 to 8 weeks to prepare. We have the as-built for building 1, for building 2, building 4. All the drainage has been located. You can see on my cursor, all the inverts, I can zoom in, are on there. All the wetlands, the grading has also been placed on there. The as-built for the septic system, the detention basin as constructed with the sediment forebay, the limits of fill and the existing limits of paving. Now, we took all this information, that was the base map that the commission was looking for, the starting point to document everything that was done on site. So we have done that. The next phase in this project that everybody had asked for is to start analyzing first building locations, what was approved / the original building locations versus what was built. And I'll just go through them real quick. We do have drawings and overlays for each one. I don't know if you need to see them. If you do, then we'll pop them up after. But we took all the buildings as for the approved drawings. We overlaid the as-built on them. They really didn't change that much from what was proposed originally. Obviously, and we brought up in the past that buildings number 4 were supposed to be 2 separate. They were constructed as one building. That was the major difference between the buildings. The second thing that was asked for was grading, spot shots. I can zoom in, but there's multiple spot shots throughout the site. Some of the commissioners wanted to make sure that the site wasn't overfilled. I can tell you now that the site was not overfilled. It's actually 6 to 12 inches lower than we had originally proposed. Again, that didn't make any effect on any of the grading and storm drainage as a whole. The next thing was the detention pond. We took the approved detention basin as approved by planning and zoning and engineering. We overlaid the as-built of the detention basin on top of that. We did find out there was a minor reduction in cubic area and volume. So minor, it was like half a dump truck load, but we still had to run the calculations because it was still a change. So we ran the drainage calcs again based on everything. We ran the impervious area numbers. We were actually less impervious than what was approved and what was presented and approved by the commission before. So you take the less impervious area, it offset the slight reduction in volume in the pond. Again, we took these drainage calculations, we ran them by the assistant town engineer, Robert Russo. The numbers didn't even change when we actually added the detention basin in, nor did the volume of, the elevation of the pond did not change, nor did the outfall of the detention basin. The amount of area was so small that it had no negligible impact at all on the calcs and the numbers. And we're talking going out to, hundreds and thousands for numerical values. So it really had no impact. Next, we looked at the storm drainage of the site. We overlaid all the locations of the catch basins and piping. We checked the inverts. We checked the pipe sizes. And then we ran all those through the drainage calcs again. There was really no change. We did document one area that we wanted to have the pipes reset a little bit to get more pitch. That was noted by the town engineer. And we had put together 2 letters, one for the town planner and the wetlands enforcement officer, which detailed all of our findings. We put a letter together for the town engineer, which we also CC'd the Wetlands Commission and the town planner on. We went through all those items as well. To sum up everything, and we have multiple drawings that we submitted, overlays, showing all this, that the buildings, the drainage, everything that got tweaked was so minor in nature. There was nothing really major that stood out except for the 2 buildings being combined into one. The second item was really, there was a curb line that actually got further away from the wetlands, creating less wetlands disturbance on the site, which is a favorable thing. But all in all, the modifications to the plan were pretty minor in nature. So again, we reviewed these with Aaron and with Maria. We also reviewed them with Rob Russo. I could show you all the overlay drawings if you want. But in the end, I think that town staff can comment on this, that we've provided the commission with everything that you've asked for. We have a great starting point moving forward of everything that was done there since the construction started. And now we're really asking for the modification approval of everything that was tweaked on the site, plus the modification of building 3 moving forward, which is really just changing some jogs in the building, which has no impact on the storm drainage, nor has impact of the septic that was installed for the building. So I'm happy to answer questions now. I know that there was a lot on the board, but I think that that we've pretty much handled everything that the commission had asked for.
Did the agency members have an opportunity to see the highlighted plans that Michael had submitted that show, the originally approved versus existing, or do you need him to show you those? I think there were 5 sheets.
Yes, I have those 5 sheets if they would like to see them.
I just want to make sure that, I know I gave you some staff comments and indicated that staff reviewed them and noted the changes, but I just wanted to make sure you asked for all of that you
You
had an
asked for it all. and I
opportunity
put a
to
lot of
review,
time and energy in for you
or
guys.
if you
So,
need to see them. That's all.
Yeah, if we could pull them up.
okay, I'll go real quick. You know, I'll share them as much as quickly as I can. Let me just stop sharing this drawing and go into the next drawing. Give me 1 second, guys. Not cooperating. There we go. All right, the first one I'll show you is the detention basin overlay. Is that coming up, Aaron? Can you see that drawing?
No,
I see you clicking on it. Oh, I see your
Yeah, it's
your circle spinning. That's not a
it's
good
spinning.
sign,
Can you
Michael.
pop them up? It might be quicker if you or Maria would pick them up. Again, we're in the middle of the country in Killingworth, so
do it.
things are rather slow out here. We'll see which one pops up. The hamsters are going in the wheel. Okay, so actually the first one that popped up is the original buildings as they pertain to the as-built. The original buildings you can see are in red, and then the as-built drawings are in this goldish color. Now probably the other one's going to pop up as well.
We'll go two at a time.
Yeah.
There you
So
go.
we'll stay with this one if it doesn't change. So this is the detention basin drawing. So there was a question asked what the wetlands originally approved. So I wanted to show that, which you can see in red. And then the planning and zoning and the engineering approval is in the cyan color. And then the as-built of the pond is in this goldish color. And the reduction in volume you can see is right in this area right here. That's that small area. And that's what had us rerun the drainage calculations, compare it to the invert sizes that were originally designed, as well as the elevations for the 2-year up to the 100-year storm. And then, you know, that came back basically minimal change and no real impact. So let me see if I can just X that drawing out and get back to the building drawing. All right, again, here's the building drawing. Building number 1 is virtually right on top of where it's supposed to be. Building number 2, you can see the goldish color has changed just a little bit from the original of building number 2. Building number 3, the proposed, you know, this was the original location. It's pretty much the same location. It just has a couple of tweaks and bump outs. Which we have a separate drawing for that modification. And then building number 4 is the biggest change, which you can see in red was 2 buildings, and now it is 1, which is the gold color. For composite storm drainage, we'll pop that up. We'll show you the difference in location, and that will also enable you to see the minor area that we'll be tweaking. So the original storm drainage you can see in red. And then the changes of the as-built storm drainage you can see in the cyan color. So these areas where all you see is red is the cyan color is underneath. It's basically laid right on top of each other. In this area over here, we had a curb line modification. So you could see this stretch of storm drainage pipe right here has been modified and the catch basin has been moved up. And then in this area, the catch basin was originally approved here. It was moved up into this vicinity and this stretch was changed. And then this original outlet for this small detention basin scour hole was moved from this area to this area that you can see here. So for all intents and purposes, the storm drainage was tweaked, but it was tweaked so minor that it had no negative effect on any of the operation of the storm drainage, nor the operation of the detention basin itself. And then lastly, we have a composite drawing which compares proposed grading with existing grading. That's how we went through the site to determine that the site is pretty much 6 to 12 inches lower in some areas as compared to the original approved drawing by the commission. So you could see here the little squares, and I could zoom in if you want, are the as-built grades. And then right next to them, you could see virtually the black squares are the proposed grades on the site. So we'll just zoom into a couple of them so you can see. In this area, the high point was at 25 25.0. We're at 23.5 or 23.8. So pretty close. In this vicinity, we're supposed to be at 24. We're at 23.5. So you could see just the minor tweaks in grades. If anything, the grading is less steep than it was supposed to be. So I just want to draw your attention to one other item, which is this red line. That's actually a curb line modification. The curb was supposed to be in this vicinity, probably 15 feet closer to the inland wetlands. It was actually pushed in closer to the buildings, as you can see here. And that's why this catch basin, where my cursor is, was moved up to location here. And that subsequent pipe was virtually changed from here to this catch basin. So the catch basin CB11, the pipe run from CB11 to CB5 is the one that we had asked and told the town engineer that will be taken care of and just adjusting a little bit. But, you know, that is the main changes in the plans themselves. We have detailed letters expressing this. Again, we reviewed them all with town staff, and we don't see any significant changes except for that 2 buildings into 1 in building 4.
Well, thank you very much. I know it was a lot of time and effort, and it's great to see those composite figures are actually super helpful to understand the changes that took place. And I'm sure all your calculations, I know it took a long time, but that's also helpful as well to understand, especially when we had changes take place and it wasn't clear what had happened. So I think we all appreciate the time and effort you put in to make this more transparent and understandable to where we are today. So that was a great presentation of where we are. Do any commission members have questions for the applicant?
No, it was a lot of work, and I appreciate. It was very helpful. I'm just curious, why did the curb line change? Not that it is. It's a positive change, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's a positive change in that it's less wetlands disturbance and less impervious area. That's something I can't ask because I didn't build it that way. I would have told them to build it the way it was designed. You know, I think it was an in the field change that said, hey, we don't have to be out as far as we need to be. Let's move it in a little bit.
Okay.
You know, I think that's how that probably went down. I can only speculate because I wasn't involved. But I do know over the last, 10 years or so, even more, we've taken the site from when it first constructed, and now we have a detailed mapping of everything that was done since
Right.
its inception. So I think we're at a good place to move forward. And honestly, this was a requirement, would be a requirement at the end of the project before closeout. So really, we're just one step closer to closing out the project.
Excellent.
But still
think-
very appreciated as well. Go ahead, Erin.
I just think speaking of that curb line, Dave, you modified some of those landscape islands, and where you would have had to drive around those landscape islands and needing a wider drive aisle in the back of those buildings with those landscape islands eliminated. You didn't have to accommodate for additional width there either.
Right. Right.
So that kind of pulled it up closer to
Right.
the building, which worked
And
out.
just, for the commission's notification, one thing you had me ask was, with the elimination of those islands, what happened with the impervious? Did the impervious go up? And actually, by default, by Dave moving that curb line, he actually created more green area, which offset the elimination of those islands. So there's actually, I documented an overall 900 square feet reduction in impervious area from what was there before by moving that curb line. If that curb line wasn't moved, he would have to be putting some more grass islands in there.
Okay, well, so this is all good information, and it sounds like it is helpful moving forward as well. So if agency members don't have any questions, Erin and Maria have a staff report and draft resolution for us to consider. Hopefully you had time to look that over.
I can screen share that if that's helpful.
Be helpful.
Mr. Harkin highlighted most of our staff comments. But I can just generally speaking, yes, that just highlighting the fact that there were 4 phases and that there were modifications made, and that the agency requested that the applicant work with the surveyor and design engineer to determine, if there were any potential impacts. All this new information was reviewed, which Mr. Harkin went through. And as he mentioned, staff did review both land use and engineering staff, and felt that these changes were adequately documented at this time to move forward. It is our recommendation, as Mike had indicated also, that prior to the completion of the project, a final as-built improvement survey for the entire development be submitted as well. And then verification from the design engineer that the remaining stormwater system and the modification to that particular pipe, that invert, are installed according to the approved plans, including the revised plans, not the originally approved. And so we did draft a resolution for your consideration with a few conditions here that I can, it's on 2 pages, I apologize. One, that all the initial permit conditions of application 17-11 remain in effect, that the Inland Wetland Agency be notified, the agent be notified prior to any commencement of additional site work for the new building, that all ENS controls remain and maintained until the site is sufficiently stabilized. Again, the final improvement survey identifying all structures, parking areas, landscape islands, and the remainder of the stormwater system. And that the applicant shall maintain the stormwater system rain garden in accordance with the design engineer's guidelines. And then again, that Mr. Harkin, or should he be unavailable, another Connecticut licensed engineer verify that the system was constructed in accordance with the design plans. So pretty standard conditions. And that's just our standard language of the validity of the permit moving forward. Any
Okay.
questions about those?
I don't have any questions. Joe, Lee, and Anna, do you have questions?
No questions. Thank you for preparing that.
Right now,
I move
building
we-
three,
Go ahead.
building three
Go ahead, Jeff.
is already approved to be built.
Well, the original approval, yes. So this modification does include a slight shift. There is a modification to the foundation of that. So that is included in this approval. So everything
Okay.
would be included.
Yeah, right. So this includes approving everything from previous
The new
that was
footprint,
approved.
the new
and
footprint
moving
for
forward.
4 and the slight
Yes.
changes to 3 going forward. Okay.
Right. So this
Yes.
covers everything.
Yes, this gets us current.
I'm okay, Lee.
I move we approve the modification to application 23-12, 175 Fort Path Road with the conditions as outlined by the staff memo dated, August 7th, 2023, I guess.
I'll
I
second.
Okay.
Oh. Okay, any other discussion? We've discussed this lots. Okay, all in favor of this motion? Raise your
Aye.
hand.
Aye.
So it is
Aye.
unanimous. Thank you very much. I know this is a long process. It's appreciated and the information is useful and I hope, and obviously I guess it'll be useful moving forward. And now everything is shipshape, so it's much appreciated.
All right. Thank you guys so much.
Thank
have a
you.
great day. We'll see you
Thanks,
next month.
David.
Take care.
Have a good night.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Chris. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. So our next, regular meeting item is application 23-11 Munkertown Road. We closed the public hearing last month and have moved on to discussion, conditions, etc. And Erin, do you have anything?
Yes, I do. Okay, so I have drafted a staff report, a draft resolution based on the agency's discussions in deliberations from last month and can screen share that for you. I did bring my notes as well from comments from both Matt Davison during the meeting, as well as the commission's concerns, or just general comments, I should say, during deliberations. Those included geothermal well construction, stormwater maintenance plan to be updated, including the inserts that would go into the catch basins, updating the level spreader outlet to incorporate some type of emergent plantings. And then the fourth item was the general construction sweeping of the site prior to any construction activities for the presence of turtles. And then I just included some general language from previous larger scale regulated activities. So we can go through those and see if the agency, now I can.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Given the recent town meeting on the potential for new classrooms or redesign, is that going to affect anything? And I guess if it did, I assume they'd have to come back if the design changes.
That's right. Any modifications, if proposed, would have to come back to the agency if it includes, not internal,
Right,
interior
right.
modifications, but it
anything-
would be, yes.
Okay,
Okay. So is this large enough for you to see here on your
Yes,
screens?
yes,
Okay.
yes,
I have too many little boxes on the side of my laptop here to zoom. Just a recap of what the application was under our fact-finding section. I did keep it fairly brief. The application is a new public elementary school with associated paved parking, driveways, play areas, and site improvements within the upland as defined in your regulations. The hearing did commence on June 5th and was held via Zoom. This was the evening where the applicant provided full testimony of the proposed project, and the hearing was then continued to the July 10th meeting. At that meeting, your wetland consultant, Davison Environmental, Matt Davison specifically provided testimony, verbal testimony, and Eric Davison participated in the written reports. And the applicant had an opportunity to respond to any of those questions that were raised by both the agency and your consultant. So the hearing did close last month, and you did have deliberations. The resolution that is offered includes, I think I said 9 conditions, and those are as follows. Inland Wetland Agency's agent shall be notified at least 48 hours prior to commencement of any regulated activity. Number 2, at all times during site work and until soil areas are stabilized, the applicant shall install and maintain erosion and sedimentation control measures such as fabric filter fencing, staked hay bales, or other measures deemed necessary by your agent to prevent erosion and sedimentation impacts to the wetlands and watercourses. Number 3, erosion control and soil stabilization measures shall comply with the approved plan and guidelines as established by the Connecticut Guidelines for Soil Erosion and Sedimentation Control, 2002. Number 4, an independent ENS control expert shall be retained by the applicant to monitor the controls on site and conduct inspections at least once a week and within 24 hours of the end of a storm event with a rainfall amount of 1 inch or greater. This shall include all construction activities as well as the geothermal well construction. Report shall be submitted to the agency's agent within 2 business days after each inspection. The reports shall provide the following information: the date, the amount of rainfall, reporting any issues, list of action items, and then resolution of action items. The applicant shall provide the name and contact information of this person to the agency's agent. Number 5, the applicant shall amend the stormwater system to include emergent planting area at the outfall of the level spreader closest to the possible vernal pool. Additionally, the subsurface detention system and stormwater basins shall be inspected by the design engineer during construction to verify consistency with the approved plans. Number 6, an as-built survey of the stormwater system components shall be submitted to the agency with written verification from a Connecticut licensed engineer that the system was constructed in accordance with the approved design plans. This submittal shall be completed prior to the applicant's request for a certificate of occupancy. Number 7, a condensed inspection and maintenance chart shall be prepared by the design engineer, identifying inspection, management, and maintenance frequency required for each component of the stormwater treatment system, including the catch basin inserts. This chart shall be submitted to the agency's agent for review prior to the applicant's request for a CO. Number 8, a landscape maintenance plan shall be prepared by the design landscape architect for the various planted areas, including the manicured lawn, any no-mow areas, the upland buffer shrubs and trees, and any stormwater wetland vegetation. This plan shall be submitted to the agency's agent for review prior to the applicant's request for a CO. Number 9, the applicant shall note importance of turtle habitats in the area and follow deep guidelines for protecting species during construction activities. And below, these are the standard wording that any additional changes to the plan may require review and further approval by the agency, and the validity of the permit as well. Are there any questions about any of the specifics or recommendations for language of any of these conditions?
I have one.
Yes.
This this is Lee. This is excellent, Aaron. Thanks. Thanks a lot. The only suggestion I would make is in 9,
Yes,
condition 9, I would say instead of follow the guidelines, say something like document compliance with the guidelines. That's the only suggestion I would have. It may be minor, but
sure.
I see, yeah, because you have up for number 4, you've got kind of it outlined, for the erosion, the ENS expert. So it's good to document compliance. I mean, it'd be good to know what's there, which I assume they'll keep track of.
maybe we keep both follow and document compliance with, or something like that.
I think that's a good idea.
Um, Let
Document
me see.
compliance.
Compliance with,
Yeah, with.
I thought this was great. You really captured our
Yeah, it's really,
discussion and concerns from last month. It's nicely done. Thank you.
you're welcome. I thought having somebody on site who can, given the slope of the property, I think really the potential could be during construction activities for
Yeah.
disturbance. So having those ENS controls and having somebody be able to walk the site after storm events is,
No, I think that's great. It's especially given that it's the Neck River water and everything. I think it's very nicely worded. Are there any other agency comments? Because we can
Looking
add,
at my notes, I'm looking at my notes from the June meeting, the hearing, and I did miss last month, but I read the minutes and I feel nothing was really mentioned in the July meeting that I'm not up to speed on, so I feel I'm confident to vote tonight, but in my notes from June, I wrote down encourage LID. So within this staff report, Aaron, is there mention of low impact development and like adhering to such development concepts?
I guess I
Or do you think it's kind of a lot of your points may be wetland protectionist and it's kind of common sense, it might all be covered there?
Well, I do think that, based on the testimony at the last meeting from both the design engineer and some back and forth with our environmental
Mr.
consultant.
Logan? Yeah,
Yes, between Mr. Logan and Matt Davison and
yeah,
Will Walter
okay.
for design wise, there were I believe that the
There
applicant
was agreement that there wasn't major impacts with the
right. I
design.
think they walked through the
Yeah.
various stages of the stormwater design, from some of the open
Okay.
basins, water quality basins, in the upper parking lot areas down to additional opportunities for water quality treatment, at the outlet of the level spreader, before going to the vernal pool. So
Okay,
I do think that I don't recall anyone leaving the last meeting feeling that that was not addressed.
I just remember the only comment I have is when I saw the site plans in June, I thought they were really putting 4 pounds of a project into a 5-pound bag. It just seemed like a lot of coverage, but I will go with Mr. Logan, Mr. Curtis, Mr. Walter, and our consultant that they're all on the same plane as far as protecting the wetlands with their plans.
Yeah, and I think some of the modifications, the vegetated area, I mean, there was discussion about it at the last meeting, and Mr. Davison was, pretty clear about, what could be better, and to the extent that they could tweak it, they have. And I think what Aaron has drawn up here has really captured the conditions that we discussed, the issues that came up by the end of the 2 public hearings.
I wish they had
I-
like
I
3
think-
more acres of undisturbed upland. But
I
Well-
think as well, what's going to be of benefit is the long-term maintenance, and that's going to be the responsibility of the town to follow these maintenance documents to keep that stormwater system functioning and to maintain the landscaping to help that. Introducing the stormwater and, it's all designed to work together. Diluting the nitrogen levels and maintaining that buffer as well to the Neck River. So the design is great, and now the town will have to maintain that upon construction.
Right, and that's clearly spelled out.
Yes.
So it's a nice.
I do feel that we tried to build that into the approval.
Other questions before we act?
Not for me.
Okay. Well, I'll make a motion that we approve application 23-11 Mungertown Road in accordance with the 9 conditions and other details outlined in the draft resolution presented by town staff.
I'll
I'll
second
second
that.
it.
Excellent. Excellent.
Anna won.
All right, any last lingering discussion before we vote? Going, gone. All right, all in favor, raise your hand, say aye. All right,
I
okay, well, knock that one off the list. Keep moving. Okay, so our next application is 23-20, 730 Durham Road. And as you may recall from the spring, and there was a site walk, there is a request by the applicant to remove some vegetation from a reasonably sized pond that has an inlet and outlet. And we had asked and there, for more information about what exactly that would entail. And they have since gotten that information. And it looks like we have Mr. Mandel here to update us on what's happening.
I do.
There
Good
you are.
night. Good evening, Chuck Mandel, agent for the applicant, Lisa Canty. Lisa's on it. And also, Aaron, is there a Matt Vogt in the audience?
Yes.
Yeah, if you could bring him in. He's the contractor who's actually doing the work.
Okay, he's coming over.
Yeah, I would let you, I would go on video, but I think my streaming service is marginal. So if you can't hear me at all, just let me know. I could go live if you want. I could give it a try, and we'll see if that works. If I start getting chopped up, just let me know. So this project is for pond maintenance. We did have a functions and values report done by Bob Russo. And I believe Aaron went over that. I think the commission may have had a look at that. Matt's company does this routinely. They do the tri-state area, removing excess vegetation from ponds. I do have a plan there, and I did submit. Lisa did provide me a picture of the pond when it does get choked out by these lilies, and we can share that also. If the commission wants to see the map I'll ask Erin to put that on the screen for me.
Sure, we can put that up. Because I
We
don't
have
think do you have that, Maria?
I have the report and the map open. I don't know which one.
Sure, let's do the plan first.
Yeah.
And then, because I don't think, I think we tabled this from the last meeting because we had just received Bob's comments that day. So we really haven't had a full discussion on the record for this one. So let's at least, yeah, bring the plan up, and I don't know, can you zoom in a little bit, Maria?
Yeah, so the area that's labeled pond is the area, would be the work area, just where the open water is. Nothing within any of the tributary area to the pond. We are providing a turbidity curtain where the water flows underneath the driveway. We also have a staging area to the west that's encased by silt fence for the machinery to take the weeds out. And that can actually give you a better comprehensive idea of how the mechanics of all this works. And in the conclusion of Bob's report, it was, well, yes, there will be disturbance of wetlands and there will be removal of some native and some invasive species, but overall, I think the net effect would be for the good in regards to removing the invasives and letting some of the non-invasives actually get a hold in the pond. And if you have any questions for Matt as to how this is mechanically done, he'd be more than happy to share that with you.
So the staging area is roughly where we parked when we went for our site walk. So that would be where the silt fence is. I guess from a staff perspective, I had a question. I assume that you're going to be lowering the volume in the pond. Matt, maybe you can kind of speak to that. I assume you're doing some dewatering. Yes.
So yeah, actually, probably I should just back up and give you the kind of the full rundown of what the plan would be. Just to introduce myself, my name is Matt Vogt. I'm owner of New England Aquatic Services. In this particular case, what we're going to be doing, we're actually not going to be altering or changing the water depth at all. What we have is a piece of equipment called a truxer, which is an amphibious machine that is tracked, so it drives on land, drives right into the pond, and it actually floats. And what that has is it has a bunch of different tool options to use for various types of maintenance. In this case, we'll be using a tool that is like a grapple that kind of grabs down. So what we'll do is we'll drop down in the water with that, grab the lily pads by the roots and, pull those rhizomes out of the water, and then bring them to shore, put them on shore where they're going to be, that material is going to then be essentially shuttled with our Kubota to that staging area and maybe put there temporarily just to let some of the water drain off of it. But ultimately, I think just load it up into, a dumpster for disposal in pretty short order. The idea is to just kind of load it up and have it taken away. So, the disturbance is certainly going to be, being in the water and pulling out that material obviously is going to create some turbidity. We'll have a turbidity curtain, at the outflow to try to block that from going downstream as much as possible. Really that between that and there was at least some fallen sticks and stuff that we wanted to grab out of there too. And the goal really is just to open up that water and kind of return it back to the way that it once was, where it's at this point just kind of really choked up with that vegetation. So kind of a simple maintenance process, should only take a few days of work to get that stuff out. And then, once we're done, that water should clear up in a few days and kind of hopefully never know we were there. Well, maybe, no, you should know we were there, but not in a negative way.
So I think maybe I missed it, but it did say in the report or whatever I was reading that it is going to have to be dewatered.
That might have been a miscommunication with what with the tool that we were using. So we're not going to dewater, or unless they're talking about the material itself being dewatered. So the idea is that when you pile it up, you know, the water contained that's dripping from it would dewater.
Yeah.
Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, Chuck Mandel here. So if you look at, we did provide for that, the detail B and C. That we
Yeah.
do have a area of dewatering, and that can be enlarged or made smaller to account for the dewatering of any vegetation, or if we were going to drop the level. But originally we were going to dewater, but then we decided later, Matt had said that won't be necessary, but we do have a contingency for it in case it is necessary. If you scroll down a little bit, you can see a detail of that. Maybe scroll up, I guess.
Yeah, it's up.
Yeah, up.
So that
that's the-
dewatering area is near the stream portion. But the access to the pond for the machinery is in the actual pond, not the stream, correct? So if you
That
were
is-
going to use the arm, you know, your grapple to take the lily pads out, are you creating sort of a dewatering area within that staging area, you know, to allow those lily pads to sit, just like if you were dredging, you know, that you would put your spoils there and let them kind of dewater, or are you just really gonna drop them into a dumpster?
You know, most of the dewatering happens with this type of vegetation pretty much immediately. It's a little different than if you're doing a dredging project where that sediment really retains moisture and needs to dewater for a longer period of time. You know, I think most of this will happen pretty much immediately, you know, between pulling it out and then dropping it in the dumpster. So I think really we wouldn't need a dewatering area so much as just a stockpile area where it will just be put as it's getting picked up by the second piece of machinery to be put in the dumpster. That's all.
Maria, can you share that picture that shows the overgrowth, so the commission can have a sense of what it looks like at some point?
You know, if these are invasive or are they just unwanted? I just looked. It doesn't look like we have invasive water lilies, but do we?
Those
Rob talked about it, didn't he? In his
He does that in his report, and he says they're considered invasive. I just looked it up.
he said it's
At
more of a
least
nuisance, right?
Yeah, I think
don't
it's,
think they're native.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I just looked it up. I think they're native.
I do too. I don't think they're invasive. I mean, we do have a lot of invasive aquatic plants in Connecticut, but I don't think these are one of them.
Yeah, Chuck Mandel, that's true, Kilo. Bob Russo did say these were native, but there are invasives in there also. So these natives actually will take over the entire pond. And in that report, if you could bring the report up also, we can look at the conclusion. That might shed a little bit of light on this.
Well, I get it. I mean, he said at the end that, you know, this probably, or he thinks, will add to more diversity. Yeah, he wants to remove nuisance vegetation such as white and yellow pond lily. And they often grow to exclusion of other beneficial plants and are considered invasive, even though they're not technically non-native, I mean,
Right.
native. And you know, that it can result in increased vegetative diversity over the intermediate term and enhance the vegetative diversity of the pond. So I get that. I think it's helpful though to be clear that, you know, that these aren't, you know, we're not talking about Phragmites, we're not talking about water hyacinth, we're not talking about some, you know, milfoil, Eurasian milfoil. You know, these are native plants that are unwanted. So I just want to be clear about that.
And I think also to add to that, by taking out the water lilies themselves, you're getting rid of a shading habitat or a shading effect on the habitat below. And I guess I don't know enough about how lilies grow. Are they aggressive growers? Like, will they just come back in 5 years? Or, you know, what other species, inundated species, are you expecting to come back that will essentially replace the lost shading effect?
The owner is on now, Lisa. You want to speak to that as in regards to the growth, because you're the one who has actually witnessed that throughout the years. Thank you. You need to unmute yourself.
There you go.
There you- Can't really hear you.
Yeah, we
Nope.
can't hear you at all, Lisa. Perhaps if your mic isn't working, Matt, you remove
Well,
these often. Do you have any experience as far as the rate of regrowth?
Well, what I would say is somebody who does this, I think, so what I would say is somebody who does this on a regular basis and does dozens of these types of projects every year. Unless Lisa has something to.
Lisa, if you want to call my cell phone, I might be able to get through it for you.
Yep, we can't hear you,
So-
Lisa. You may want to try and rejoin.
So to be blunt from my perspective, I'm not going to necessarily.
Hello? Yeah. Yeah, well,
So let me say, from my perspective, doing lots of these projects, and a lot of times, really, the issue isn't so much that we want them to come back, right? So they are aggressive growers, and that is a problem in and of itself, because as you can see, they're filling in that pond. It's a small pond. It's really shallow. You know, there's not really, it's not like a big fishery where kind of having those shade plants there is super beneficial to what you're trying to accomplish, as you would see in a larger lake where you want to have kind of that diverse habitat for things like that. This is, you know, a pond at the front of this property that, you know, it gets its own shading effect just from nearby, you know, trees overhanging that would have, you know, any benefit to the pond itself. So in this case, really what we're trying to do is protect that pond from becoming just a lily pad habitat, I guess you could say, because it's just going to want to fill that in. So pulling them out, you're going to get control because we're removing the roots. Will they come back ultimately? Potentially. Likely what will happen is a little bit of that rhizome will get left behind, and you'll get some regrowth the following year. And that minimal regrowth, it's hard to estimate what that is in advance, because we're not going to be doing it intentionally, because, you know, we don't necessarily want that to be a lily pond in this particular case. But some regrowth is going to be expected, and what you can then do is monitor that. And that's one of those situations where periodically, you know, you trim that back and keep it under a little bit more control than, you know, allowing it to kind of just go unchecked as it has over the years, because it really wasn't, you know, their main focus in terms of maintenance.
I guess what I would say is that for to Anna's point about the shade cover in the pond, I think it's not just fish. There's a lot of aquatic organisms that need emergent vegetation, and taking it all out of the pond all at once takes away that habitat. So and I think maybe it's not clear what the goals are for this pond, because if the goal is to keep it clear of pond lilies, that's going to be, you know, constant, and that's going to be disrupting this wetland continually, or every 5 to 10 years, right?
I mean, well, I would disagree that it's constant in the sense that you have one kind of larger project removing this all. And those plants don't function like a plant like milfoil does, or submerged plants, or things like that are going to be constant year after year pulling them, because you can never get the roots out. You get a lot more control with lily pads doing physical removal than you would other types of plants due to the way that their root structure is formed. So, I mean, ongoing maintenance, I mean, is there maintenance 10 years from now? Maybe, but you know, again, it's kind of like, you know, in a garden, you choose what plants you may want to have grow in there, and there's certain ones you may not want. This is
Right,
similar
except
to
this is a regulated, this is a wetland that's regulated and has other functions besides, getting rid of pond lilies. So I guess,
Of course, but we're not removing all of the biodiversity in terms of, or all of the plant diversity in the pond. We're really targeting that particular. Yeah.
Let me, if I can interrupt for a second, I have Lisa here, on my speaker, so let's let her try to talk.
So we have no intention of doing this again. We moved it here about 36 years ago. And when we moved, they had a project to dredge the pond. And gradually, everything has come back. And it's really in the last, I'd say 15 years that this has kind of totally gotten out of control. So, it's not going to be something from expense wise, and also not wanting to do it. We haven't done it for 36 years. It's a one-time thing basically for us.
Are you
Thank-
proposing to remove all of the pond lilies, or are you leaving some?
I can guarantee you that there will be some back, within the next year or two.
To
Certainly
piggyback,
not the way it is now.
yeah, to
So one question
piggyback
I
on,
have, go ahead, Joe.
to piggyback on Aaron's question for Matt, if there was a 3-foot by 3-foot grid pattern over the pond, is
on
the
mute.
plan for the grappler to pretty much nail every grid and remove, or is it 75% of the pond is targeted?
Well, I would say our discussions at this point has been to remove all of them, or not necessarily to intentionally leave behind any areas. That has just simply hasn't been our plan coming here, because again, we're trying to kind of combat this plant, which, while native, is an aggressive nuisance species.
I guess one concern I have is if it took, estimated, 30, however many years, at least over 10 years for this vegetation to grow to this state, it's a pretty consistent habitat underneath it. So that means it's going to take another 15 years for it to potentially naturally revegetate, revegetate and restore itself. Are you guys proposing, and I apologize if I missed this, any plantings? I'm not sure how you would do that, but are you proposing to plant anything?
No, at this point, Anna, we are not proposing anything. Just let nature regrow itself. There, it was proposed to do this in the fall. There'd be less activity from any species that are in there. But it's an aesthetic type of thing, and it will increase some.
I think we lost him.
Yeah, we lost you, Chuck.
Yeah.
Oh, did you lose me on that one?
Yep.
Yep.
Can you repeat
Okay.
that?
Yeah, so it says my internet connection is unstable. So the vegetation that's going to be removed is going to be done in late fall. There'll be very little activity from any obligate species in that pond at that point. Also, it will regrow and it will give additional native plants a chance to maybe establish that. But this project won't happen again in Lisa's due to the expense and the difficulty in getting this project off the ground.
are you worried about Phragmites, which is invasive, getting established once you disturb this entire pond? I mean, it's nice to think that you'll get native plants back, but you could get invasive Phragmites and sometimes cattail.
Sure. So if that stuff's going to come, it's going to come regardless of whether or not those lily pads are the way that they are now. Doing this work here will not increase the potential for those to move in.
And actually, there is no Phragmites on the site right now.
I know. I think
yeah.
that's impressive and amazing.
Yeah.
And I would personally be hesitant to disturb a place that didn't have it because Phragmites likes to get a hold. And I guess what I would also just say is I think it sounds like this is an aesthetic goal. It's not a functional goal. You know, wetlands, this is a pond, and ponds have a natural life cycle where they get filled in and they get covered. So it's nothing. It's just, I think it's helpful to not necessarily think about these as, you know, you're going to take these weeds that you don't want and put them away, but you're disturbing a huge ecosystem that is, you know, home to lots of the organisms that, you know, we're supposed to protect. And in the short term, as your wetland scientist did note, you know, in very nice language, essentially you're going to, you know, kill and get rid of a ton of animals while you pull that stuff out, right? You're going to get rid of certainly a lot of macroinvertebrates that have used those pond lilies as habitat and which serve as food for a lot of the organisms in that pond. So the short-term disturbance is real. And I guess it's just helpful to think about that in terms of what we're getting out of this, which is 10 to 15 years of a clear pond surface, perhaps.
Well,
If I can just follow up. Oh,
yeah,
go ahead.
yeah, just one thing. So yeah, I do agree. You know, there is a natural eutrophication of ponds over years. They do fill in and they become just a big muck area. They do fill in. This perhaps could forestall that a little bit, the eutrophication of the pond. And you did mention aesthetics. So yeah, so people do have I realize the commission has every right to say no to this, but people do have certain property rights where they can, if they want to enjoy their property. I don't see what, and it will come back, it will restore. There are a lot of projects that have been approved. There are a lot more detrimental than removing lilies on here. So yes, it is recreational, and yes, it's something that my client would like to do. And harm, there might be some harm at first, but we all know that things recover, and in the long run, I think it may actually forestall the filling in of this pond. And Anna, go ahead.
One question I did have, I don't believe I was here for the site walk or for the initial receipt of this. I think I was out on maternity leave, but was there a question when this was received if it's a significant activity?
I believe so.
Yeah, we didn't deem it a
No.
activity.
Okay.
And I guess my second question that was brought up by your soil scientist is, it sounds like downstream there is a natural diversity database blob. Is that right? There's some protected species or listed species.
Yes. Bob Russo did note that in his plan, or in his report.
But we don't know what that is. I mean, I don't know. Did anybody try to find out what that is? Because you have to ask them.
Yeah, no, this was off-site, so we did not pursue that, Kilo.
Okay, but it's off-site, but within, but your stream and pond disturbance.
I think it's within Hog Pond or down gradient of Hog Pond stream.
Right, it's somewhere nearby. I just didn't know if anybody had pursued that and tried to get a better idea of what that was.
No, we did not, and I don't believe it's in Bob's report, except for cursory mentioning it.
And Anna, this is our first time discussing this. So we did a site walk, we received it, we did a site walk, and then it's been tabled because we didn't have some of the information that we're talking about tonight. Okay. So this is our first go around on it.
Is there any additional information that the agency is looking for? At this time, that could, whether from the wetland scientist or,
I think it would be helpful to see a more detailed function values analysis that's consistent with our significant. I don't remember the citation with what we have for the significant activity requirement. Just to confirm that, so we have a document saying impacts would be minimal to the ecosystem around this pond.
Chuck Mandel here. That was a fairly extensive report, if I believe. Did you get a chance to read it on it? Was there something that was materially missing from there? I thought it was fairly well written. Bob's done many of these.
It's 13 pages.
Yeah.
With maps. Okay. Yeah, I was hoping to see, a little bit more. We have a list of vegetation and species that are, potentially use the site, but we don't really talk about how it would impact their life cycles, as well as any downstream habitats or, critical areas that may or may not be there. I'm not sure what's in that report would meet the requirement of a function value assessment.
so you're looking for, and I guess just to clarify and then allow the agency to kind of mutually request that, the life cycle impacts to the species that are in the pond?
Yeah, especially because we're getting rid of, and I understand that part of the pond is shaded, but in the pictures we do see the other half of the pond is not shaded, and it seems to be a midday picture. So yeah, I think getting more information again on impacts to the ecosystem.
Yeah, so I think what he had on page, what page is this? I don't know, 3. He talks about factors important to functional assessment. He has 7
Yes.
that talk about that. And then he talks about some of the functional assessments. And the principal functions, and he has it in Appendix C, but he lists groundwater recharge, sediment, intoxicant retention, nutrient removal, and wildlife habitat. But I think, and maybe this is what you're getting at, Anna, I don't think he did a wildlife survey. He just said what's known or expected to be in the pond.
Mhm.
And, looking through amphibians and reptiles, that made sense. But I guess, Anna, I guess what you're saying is it's not clear from this report. So I guess what this report doesn't do is talk about what might happen downstream. It gives recommendations for what might happen to minimize what happens downstream. Is that more of what you're getting at?
Do you mean?
I think so. I think also just, maybe it's just me, I'm uncomfortable making this type of decision on the, based on the report itself. It just seems like it seems like a larger impact that needs a little bit more detailed analysis.
So I would be happy to answer any questions that you have when it comes to this. I just want to make sure that the commission is clear. We're talking about just removing some lily pads from a pond, a small pond, for a maintenance purpose. We do these on massive scales for like entire lakes. Downstream, what you may expect is potentially some turbidity, certainly getting around the turbidity curtain, but we are not talking about a major alteration to the pond except for opening up the water from being choked out, which has changed over time.
That is, I mean, that's
I mean,
fine.
there's
Actually a major thing.
yes, but we're talking about some, amphibians and reptiles that may be slightly impacted in the sense that we're removing the lily pads. I mean, this is a pretty minimal maintenance process in a homeowner's pond. I just want, you're kind of going down the road of talking about asking this homeowner to spend probably several thousand more dollars on additional reports for removing a patch of lily pads from a pond.
I think
just
our
want to put on the table
regulations,
kind of what we're talking about here.
yeah. So within our regulations, though, this is an activity within a wetland, and given our
It is.
regulations and given the precedents that we have to follow for other other applications we have in town, these are questions that we ask lots of applicants about what they plan to do with inland wetlands. So it's
Sure,
not.
no, absolutely. This is well within your right to do that. I just want to be clear about the larger impacts too of kind of what we're talking about trying to accomplish here
Yeah, I
for
think we
the
understand that.
residents' case as well.
Right. And we are a small town, and I think we understand that this can be onerous on a homeowner. And we are also all volunteers that are, helping out our town by serving on this agency and trying to just uphold the regulations that, our town has with respect to inland wetlands.
I have a question to ask Anna, just for clarification, which perhaps could be answered by Bob. But looking for clarification, there's a control structure at the driveway, the crossing. And so are you referring to, when you're talking about impacts, are you talking about impacts to the pond, or are you talking about down gradient impacts as a result of actual turbidity in, the act of removing the pond lilies from the pond? And Dad,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to clarify what specifically we're seeking as far as information from Bob.
I think within the pond itself, but I do think while not as high priority as within the pond itself, also taking a look at that downstream potential NDDB polygon, understanding it's offsite, if there might be any downstream impacts as well. Understanding we also have the turbidity curtain on the plan as well.
Have a comment question. So, and it may help Anna visualize a little bit, but we had the site walk, and the pond in question is what it is. And then there was a wooden bridge over the water course for the driveway to get to the upper house. And under the bridge was this barrier that slowly allows the pond water to go downstream. And I did notice there was a pond on the other side, and it looked like it was a lot in a lot better shape than the Canty's pond. And I was wondering, I can't remember, it may have been said that day, if that pond to the south was ever dredged or cleared in a similar way that's being proposed. It just looked like it was a lot clearer that day.
So the down gradient pond is Hog Pond. And you're right, there is a control structure under that driveway.
Nice picture, by the way.
And so that was my question, I guess, and looking at, the additional information is one, whether there was an actual wildlife survey conducted within the existing pond. I know Bob mentioned, and I guess at this point, it probably would have been helpful to have him here to discuss this with you. He discussed or referenced frogs and some other amphibians in the pond, but did not discuss specific sampling, I guess. or notes from his site visit. So that's one item that you're requesting. And then the second was the potential impacts, life cycle impacts, ecosystem impacts to the species in the pond. And then I guess should that turbidity curtain not function the way, what are potential down gradient impacts in Hog Pond? And if Hog Pond is the actual location of the NDDB site, and what specifically is the species identified in the NDDB report? Does that
Yes,
include everything that you were referring to, or do you have more?
Chuck Mandel here. Let me just, so Lisa was called me on the phone while you were talking, Aaron. That pond, Hog Pond, was dredged about 36 years ago, she said. There was a major dredging project that was done, not just plants, but it was, they took out hundreds of yards of material at the time. So I don't have any documentation of that. I don't know anything about that, but
I don't know if that pond has been chemically treated with anything.
that I
either.
don't. She said
I
it was mechanically dredged though about 36 years ago.
So those 4 items, I guess, that I highlighted, do you have additional questions? I'm getting the sense, and just in the effort of time here, I guess, getting the sense that you're looking for some additional information from Bob, and perhaps that he can either follow up with a memo or join you at your next meeting. I do think in order to continue discussions on this, the applicant would have to grant an extension to the commission, to the September meeting. But does it look like that's the direction you're looking to go?
Is that a question for me, Aaron?
Well, I guess first for the agency, if you're looking
Okay. Yeah, okay.
to seek this information at the September meeting, or at least have some clarification, or Bob could clarify his existing report.
Well, if they're chomping at the bit to approve it, then I guess we don't have to ask for a continuance. But
I'm not getting that sense. Chuck.
no, I don't. No, I can read the room pretty well. So I would ask for an extension. I have to talk to my client whether she wants to go ahead and spend a few more $1,000 more to get this secondary report, but that's not the agency's problem.
Well, I think, I guess, I don't know, maybe the agency members can clarify that. I'm not jumping to a $2,000 bill here for some questions that were raised. I guess maybe the members of the agency can kind of, if you're looking for, specific wildlife surveys, things like that, some of that may, depending on the time of year, you may or may not get what you're looking for right now. If you're looking for some, a level of clarification from Bob Russo, then we can, I'm sure he can expand upon some of the things he wrote in his report, and talk about potential impacts to assumed species, if that's what he did for the pond, as opposed to actual surveying of the pond. I guess that's, Anna brought up the idea of what species are in there and what particular impacts. I guess we need to know as a whole from the agency if that's the direction you're looking to go. You're looking for information. It's not a significant activity. Additional, questions were raised. I mean, I can go through that section, but if you have, there it is.
It sounds like the
7-6.
applicant. Sounds like the applicant got lucky that we didn't call it a significant activity. So,
Well, I feel the commission made a good decision at that one. And actually, Aaron's right. There's certain taxons that won't be available. They won't be present at this time. Their ship has sailed months ago. So it would be a guess on a part of biologists to go look at that.
I mean, it sounds like you're looking for a more detailed biological evaluation of the pond is.
Yeah, I think an assessment that ship has sailed already.
I agree. I don't think, we saw it in May and there were definitely things there that we could see. I think, I think understanding the downstream impacts better because there's an NDD blob is important. And I don't necessarily think that has to be a huge survey because it could be, we don't know what's in that. We don't know what's there, right? Because it could be something that's not impacted at all.
Could be a bird.
It could be a bird, right? Exactly. It could be a bird. It could be a terrestrial plant. It could be.
Great blue heron.
Well, they're not listed, but I mean, we don't know what's there, and so, and I, and maybe, and likely, the turbidity isn't going to maybe necessarily impact whatever's there. Whatever turbidity gets through. I'm sure there's measurements given the fine mesh that's being used. But that, I mean, for that would be helpful. And I think, and I think it's helpful to clarify. And I think this was a problem I had with the application. You're not restoring this pond. It's a choice. It's an aesthetic choice to make. And restoration has a very distinct term, and we use it a lot when we're restoring. We're asking applicants to restore wetland habitat, and that's actually not what's going on here. Granted, it was dug. This is a dug pond that is in between an inlet and an outlet. But I think it's just helpful to be clear about, the goals that are here. And the goal is to get rid of the lily pads so that the pond is clear and pretty, is what I assume that the goal is. But given that it's an inland wetland, our job is just to figure out, okay, so what's going to happen when we pull these plants out, and is this something that's okay? So for me, I think it would just be helpful to know what's downstream so that we know that we're not doing something terrible to some last listed, I don't know, orchid species, or I have no idea. I don't know what's down there.
Yeah, Chuck Mandel. Yeah, that's a fair assessment, Kilo. I agree with that. So I will ask my client. We have to. Well, we can ask for an extension for tonight. If the commission so chooses, that's the direction we should go. And then we'll talk to Bob. I'll talk to my client, and we'll go from there.
And I don't think that's a huge financial burden. That Deep should just be.
It could be. Yeah, you could pull that off the website.
Well, they have to. You can't. I mean, they don't give you the exact thing that's there, but you could ask them.
Yes. Yeah.
You could. So that's an easy thing. But Anna, I don't know. Does that? I mean, I don't know if that doesn't. I know that doesn't help with some of the points you were bringing up. So I don't know what you're comfortable with.
I think it would be helpful.
Okay, so downstream effects and take a look at NDDB species. And what else were you concerned with? Because I get the downstream effects. What else were you looking for?
I think it was getting a better idea of what would the effects be within the pond itself by removing that shade cover. Again, understanding that half the pond is shaded by forest canopy trees, but in the picture, the other half isn't. And again, just getting an idea. Yep.
Well, I was just going to say, I can tell you, I mean, because that's what I do. So when you remove all that, and I've seen ponds where you do this, when you remove a significant amount of emergent vegetation, you take away breeding habitat, you take away a bunch of habitat, that will come back. It'll come back. But the short-term effects are you're taking away breeding habitat for macroinvertebrates and amphibian species, and you're taking away, habitat for birds to fish and whatever, get tadpoles. And you will increase the water temperature because there isn't going to be any shade cover on that open part of the pond. Because that part is open, which is why the lily pads are there, because that's in the open part of the pond, and the shaded part of the pond doesn't have as much because it's shaded. So that's kind of the sequence of events that will happen. They are not, irreversible. That, it's just, we don't know what will come back, but something will come back. But that's what's going to happen. You're going to raise the water temperature in there, and you're going to lose, aquatic habitat for a couple, maybe seasons, depending on what moves in.
You say, Kia, that breeding absolutely ceases like after September? Or is spring the
Well-
time where everything's having fun and there's no more breeding until the next fun,
If there's
next spring?
bullfrogs in there, they're going to breed. It's fine. None of what is, I don't, unless there's listed species in there which I don't think, because from what I saw, unless there's, I don't know, spotted turtles, which I don't think, there isn't anything listed, but the amphibians, bullfrogs are breeding, green frogs might still be breeding. There could be, I'm sure there's snappers and painteds. It's fine. Things, we're not making anything go extinct unless we don't know about what's in the blob. That would be the concern. I don't know what's in that blob. But
Oh, yeah, I got from Anna's question, she'd like to know like what's the value of those lily pads to the pond? What's the function of the pond? I think a little bit more detailed as to function and values than the overview, the extensive overview of Bob. So that's what I heard.
okay, well, those, if that's the case, I think those are still relatively easily answered questions that hopefully I don't think should be hard to answer. Rob was out there, it looked like twice. He should be able to answer, or Bob. He should be able to answer that. And the NDDB is super easy.
Hmm.
Okay, so any other requests or comments or anything? And
Nope.
do you think, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I wrote them down. I'm happy to pass them along to you, Chuck, and Bob directly, that he can expand upon his report and return back.
Okay. So I will email you a requested extension, and I will talk to Lisa and Bob Russo. I've got my marching orders.
Okay.
Well, thank you, but I guess we're going to see you shortly anyway.
Yes, you will.
Yep.
Let's see. Yeah, next one then. Yeah, I'll be back. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you for your patience.
Oh, don't worry. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Lisa.
Okay, so our next application is 23-37, 256 Bartlett Drive. We did a site walk here in July. The applicant is looking to remove trees within and adjacent to the inland wetland.
If they're nervous.
Leanne is here.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, Leanne. Yes.
Up, start video. Here we go. I'm here with Tom, my husband.
Tom.
Good evening, everyone.
Thanks for your patience.
No problem.
No
It's been an
problem.
education. This is good.
Yeah.
Okay. So as for those who weren't on the walk, Tom and Leanne are proposing to remove trees adjacent, within the upland review area and some on the fringe edge of the wetland boundary, as best as Leanne could measure from their home. So the survey is an as-built of the property, shows the inland wetland delineation from when the house was built. And she did measure from, specific corners of the house to get best delineate where those trees are. Many of you saw them. Some of them are, have some broken limbs or some rot. Others are leaning on other trees. And the homeowners are worried about safety risks. So I guess, to kind of summarize, the agency had some concerns with some of the trees that were not specifically diseased, dead, or dying, and the need to remove those in that area. So I don't know if you want to talk specifically about certain ones. I know, Kayla, you had concerns over some of the trees, and if there was an imminent need to remove those. I can say that as I walked out there, I did see a lot of beech trees that looked that at some point in the future may be compromised with disease. And those are not part of this proposed tree removal project. Mike Rieger is the arborist who provided some information to the agency regarding the condition of the trees. I guess at this point, the question is, do you need additional information? Did you have questions about whether or not some have to come down at this time versus just a desire to remove them? And if so, what are the potential impacts to the adjacent wetland? Who wants to start?
I will.
Do we need to share a plan or no?
Do you want to? Do you want us to pull the plan up? Sure.
Yeah.
Do you have that, Maria?
Yes, ma'am.
Okie dokes. Okay.
I think just from our site walk and the property owners bringing us through each tree and giving a reason as to why the trees were coming down. I think the majority of the reasons are hazard safety concerns. I think my only thought would be for the trees that are coming down within the wetland, and I think there's one or two straddling the line, because they are providing, canopy cover. Can we put can we replant that with a tree that might grow over time to replace that, lost tree? Maybe something a little bit more sturdy that'll succeed in that location.
That's a question to the homeowners, then I think, yes, that's reasonable. Our intent is not to, remove or change the landscape. Our intent is to really remove the trees that Mike, the arborist, identified as issues. So no issues, especially if it's within the line that you're mentioning around the wetlands, replanting.
I remember from the site walk, there was a couple trees that were highlighted as rubbing against each other and maybe being a risk, but that's something that happened. So it wasn't clear to me. And I think it was, let me see. It was, I can't remember.
It was 6, right?
Yeah, it was
So
5 or 6 or something,
5
but
or 6.
6.
it did seem like, that happens, but I agree some of the other trees had issues, but some of them don't. And a lot of these trees are pretty big. So if it wasn't, I know the arborist had a letter, but it was pretty general. It didn't highlight which trees are which, right? It didn't say this is disease or this is. So I guess I would just say that if it's really just rubbing against another tree, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to come down. I've got lots of trees in my yard that do that.
So I think he had identified on tree 6 that there was the center of the tree was rotting. And then it was leaning against some of the others. And then even in the last storm, we've lost probably 2 or 3 very large branches under our lawn as a result. So I think that's why the safety continues to be a concern. If there's specific information needed about a certain tree, happily to make sure that Mike's comments are more specific. But those are certainly, safety concerns that we continue to lose some rather large limbs from those trees that fall into the area where, to be honest with you, where our children play.
You had pictures, Leanne. Did any of the pictures identify if they were diseased or that they correspond with these numbers or no?
Yeah, I don't know if you
Bring
have
up
there was a
pictures.
document that actually had a tree by tree description with pictures and description. It was a separate document.
You have that, Maria?
Yeah.
Maybe that'll show that one.
Actually, I think it's in the same document.
There's actually 4 images of tree 6, which is in question.
Well, so I don't know exactly which tree. If you've got documentation for each tree that it's either diseased or whatever, I think that's fine. I
Oh,
guess
there they are.
I guess the concern is, you're describing you have a lot of trees, and hopefully, this helps, but taking out all the trees around and in a wetland would be not ideal.
And I don't think I would say that I don't think that's a fair assessment of our intent. I think our intent is we had a licensed arborist come out and take a look at the property and identified, to your point, several trees that were an issue, from tree rot and some of the cedar trees as well. So I think that certainly we bought the house because we love the trees. We love being surrounded by the wetlands. I think it's just identifying these specific trees that he identified as a safety concern, not even us. So it's not necessarily our desire just to clear trees and do this for aesthetics. It's purely for safety and concerns from the environment.
So that's great. I agree with Anna that maybe some planting would help. These are it'll take time, but but just having something that eventually will, come back, because
Sure, yeah.
and I don't know.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kay. Go ahead.
No. I was just going to ask Anna if she had suggestions, like, I don't know, red maple, something
That's
that.
what I was going to ask.
Oh, good.
Okay. So, yeah, something that was sort of a wet tolerant native species. Okay.
I mean, red maple's easy, or white oak. I guess there's a white oak, swamp oak. There's Anna. Do you have?
I think like swamp oak. I'm trying to think. I honestly don't remember what trees you have in the area beyond, the obvious beach and whatnot. But
That
I'd
could
say
also be a recommendation from Mike, the arborist, as well as, something that would work in a wet area. There's probably.
I was going to say, if you have the arborist, maybe they can just take one more look at what trees are in the wetland itself and mimic those trees.
Yeah, I think there's definitely oak, and I can't remember if it was pin oak or swamp oak. I mean, there was and red maple. Those are easy, but that would be helpful just to, 10, 15 years, 20.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, as mentioned, our intent, this is not to for aesthetic. This is not to clear land. This is just purely trees that were identified. We like the trees, but it's trees that are identified by the arborist, and very happy to replant where necessary.
And is there sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, is there a requested size of tree that we should replace it with?
I think we ran into I forget what
they do a caliper. Yeah.
Okay.
I know there was that one site that was the violation where the tree height requested was too tall, so it couldn't be done manually. I just don't remember what that height was.
It was big. That
That was, that was a big tree.
it was a big tree.
I think usually I think we would say like a 4-inch caliper tree or something like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say we don't wanna have machinery doing it, so whatever is lower than that.
Something that can hand plant.
Yep. And so then those would be, I'm pulling up your staff report here. That was roughly what, 3 or 4 trees on in the actual wetland? There's a few on the edge.
We should probably not, right?
No, it's in the explanation.
So you had 9 trees total. There were some in the upland.
So if you're looking at like 6, 7.
And 9. Number 5
So
is just
3.
a. Oh, sorry.
What's that?
So 3 trees were in the wetland?
Yeah, one tree 5 is I think it's the
7.
it's one
It's
that's
just a
broken in
stump.
half, and it's just
Belong.
a stump.
That's a dead, that is a dead tree.
We could even
So
just
maybe 6,
trim that
7,
down to
9
a
-ish.
stump and leave. Yeah.
That's 6,
Yep.
7, and 9.
Does that work for the agency to have 3 planted?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I can,
And right, are you adding that to the draft
yeah,
resolution?
I can screen share that too and do it while I'm here so we can move forward here.
Right. Are there any other questions for the applicant?
Nope.
No.
Okay. So Erin has very kindly done another draft resolution for us.
I think Maria did this one.
Oh, Maria, sorry.
I did.
Yay. Well, these are lovely. They're very helpful. And it's nice to get real-time modifications. Okay, so
Wetland, tolerant, native.
native, yeah. So as Erin does this, you can look at this. So this is our draft resolution. Some of this is standard being notified. That all machinery and truck access should be from the upland, and best management practices shall be used during tree removal to reduce erosion or sedimentation impacts in accordance with the Connecticut Guidelines for Soil and Erosion Sediment Control 2002, that the cut trees and brush material will be removed. Disturbed soils shall be immediately stabilized with seed. Seed, is that like a native seed mix? And hay?
It's really more the lawn area, I think, for any
Okay.
disturbance, because I'm anticipating that this will be done with a bucket. And that the actual machinery will not be in the wetland. It's going to
Right.
be,
Okay.
from an upland area, so it could just be tracking. And usually they'll put mats down to reduce that.
Okay.
And Mike did confirm that.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And number 5, the applicant shall plant 3 wetland tolerant native trees along the inland wetland boundary at a minimum of 4-inch caliper. And then the rest is our standard language. So if someone is comfortable making a motion on this application, we can act on this.
I'll make a motion to approve application 23-37 using the conditions outlined in the staff report dated, I think, August 7th.
Yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Will you second? All right. Any more discussion? We've got a motion and a second. Okay, all in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Great, thank you. It's helpful to have the map and the site walk.
Thank you all. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks.
You.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay. So now we are to application 23-43, 251 Boston Post Road. This is the proposed restaurant where the Winter Club used to be. Again, we did a site walk in July, and we have the applicant represented by Chuck Mendel, Jeff Beatty, probably
John
other.
Cunningham also, Aaron, is might be
Okay.
somewhere.
Oh, the Cunninghams. I didn't, how did I not put that together? I'm sorry. All right, you're coming over, John.
And there's Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
Good evening. How are you? I'm sorry. I'm not being held captive. I'm just in a
You in an
location
alley?
other than my office. So I'll hold up a newspaper so everybody can see what day it is. My name is Jeffrey Beatty, 705 Boston Post Road. I'm a partner with Sullivan, Griffith and Beatty. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. And Chuck Mandel is the engineer and surveying outfit, and Stevens and Associates have prepared the application. So I'm going to turn it over to him to go over it. I think we've come up with a plan that would address some of the issues on the property and allow us to move forward with our planned development of the former Madison Winter Club site. My client purchased the property earlier this year, and we're looking forward to developing the site in a way that's something that this commission can be proud of, that this town can be proud of, and will be a good addition to make it better than what's there now. So Chuck, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jeff. Good evening, Chuck Mandel. Aaron, we might as well throw the map right on the screen here so we can take a look at it. So my client, he owns La Forista currently in Killingworth. He is a successful restaurateur. He has purchased the Winter Club. He was looking for a 150-seat restaurant. We did send this to the Madison Health Department, and they did refer this to the state due to the requirements of the sewage outfall. So we do have approval from the state health department for the septic system, and you can see that's that hatched in cyan line that's in 2 rows through the parking lot. We are replacing the existing system, so it's actually almost in the same area of the existing. You can see the as-built system to the south there. There's like 1 row that's actually closer to that small wetland pocket there. We had the wetlands delineated by Michelle Ford, and she did give functions and values of the current state. Erin did point out that she didn't come back and revisit this functions and values as to the effect of what we're proposing, but I feel it's a de minimis change. If you look at the wetlands pocket that's to the south of our property, that's actually on state land, so we have no jurisdiction over that. That I don't know how that probably falls within deep regulations. It was heavily overgrown with Phragmites. It was surrounded by lawn. Its function, I don't know if it has much function at this point, as opposed to just an overgrown mat of the soils do represent the wetlands, meet the criteria for wetlands. We are proposing to close off the eastern driveway. You can see that's a hatched area there. That was due to safety concerns. That's closest to the Neck River, so that will be shut off completely. And the driveway in the center, the existing driveway on the post road, will be widened slightly and improved for the sight line. So there are some large trees in that area that will have to get removed. Those do affect the sight line, and the DOT has reviewed this plan, and they did say we will have to remove those oak trees that are there. John can go over the planting plan later. I'll just go into a little bit more detail here. So one of the concerns was stormwater mitigation. So originally we had no plans for mitigation, but I'm talking with Erin about that. We are proposing to capture the increased impervious surface for the parking lot. That will be all to the west. There's a existing driveway off of, what's the name of that road, Aaron? I can't remember.
Stonewall?
Stonewall?
Yeah, Stonewall, I think.
Oh, yeah, okay, so, yeah, so Stonewall Lane, we're gonna be closing that for traffic, but it will be left open for emergency vehicles. I will be talking to the fire marshal and see if they actually need that area. But we were thinking of just closing that off completely. But for now, we are going to leave it open for emergency vehicles only. There won't be any through traffic. There will be a gate there that will prevent people from driving through. If you go look at the building area, we're proposing, well, a brand new septic system. There'll be a septic tank and grease trap. In that area, we're also proposing outdoor seating to the north and south of that wing that's shown on the existing building. And I did submit some architectural plans that you can take a look at if you wish. We're also going to be closing off the front part of the driveway, and that will be used for seating, and there will be pavers there. People can drop off people to the right of that pavement area, and they can walk to the front entrance of the building for handicapped accessibility. We are showing silt fence. And let's go back to stormwater. So you see those blue boxes to the north of the property within the stockpile area. So we can capture enough stormwater to mitigate the approximately 800 square feet of impervious surfaces. But if that doesn't work in regards to the building, we can also mitigate the parking by running those same equivalent volume along the north edge of the parking lot. So we can mitigate the stormwater with very little problem one way or the other. And there's an existing well that's to the southwest of the property. That's also on state land. We have been in contact with the state Historic Society. They had concerns that that well has some historic value. So they don't want us to actually destroy the well, but they are allowing us to fill that in with sand so we can meet the health code and also preserve that for historic purposes. And if you want to flip over to the, well, first of all, are there any questions so far?
Is that septic system one of those aeration ones, or is it just standard galleys?
This is a Curtex system. So the thing about these systems, Joe, is that you're not allowed to. So Geomatrix has their own proprietary system that allows air in the leach fields themselves, but this will be introducing air into the tank. There is like a bubbler system to enhance the aerobic activity within the tank itself. And it does reduce nitrogen from the tank. But these are a Curtex system, and they have a high success rate. They're similar to concrete galleys, yet they have these additional attachments to the concrete that enhance the effective leaching area per linear foot on that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
How many extra parking spaces are being added?
So right now, that's a good question. So for the restaurant, we're required to have 38 spaces. It's one spot per 4. And then for the employees, we're providing 6. So I believe their total required is 44 spaces. There is a residential component in the restaurant. There's a 2-bedroom apartment upstairs right now. So that would be an additional 2. There are almost 92 spaces here. In case there was a large event, outside event, whatever there was, the owner did want as large parking area as possible that he could do on here. But most of the activity, Joe, is actually you can see the 100-foot review line from the Neck River runs through the restaurant itself.
Yep.
Yeah, and additionally, the other inland wetlands pocket, the one to the south, actually cuts about halfway through the parking lot on the other one.
Okay, so my last question, just for proximity, because that map up above isn't helping. Say from the intersection of 79 and Route 1, where is this?
From 79 and okay, so this is right opposite the let's see, there's a deli across the street, right where Neck Road. So if you go, it's the first off of Neck Road on the west side. So it's actually
Mungus
right across the
House.
street from Neck Road,
Okay, got it.
just west of the river, that bridge crossing.
Thank you.
And behind us, it's a residential subdivision behind us to the north.
And they were calling it like the Oyster Brothers or
It's
What's
going
the
to be
proposed-
called the Madison Oyster House,
Oyster House. Okay.
or Madison Oyster House, correct. But there will be
Okay.
steaks and yeah, it's going to be a oyster / steak restaurant.
Wellfleet oysters. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, okay. I can't answer that. I'm not sure.
Okay. I'll request it.
Okay. Any other questions, or I can show yeah, go ahead. Just one more thing. So to the east of the building, we will be maintaining that driveway for safety and for fire access along there, but we are not proposing any activity. And that was another question I had for the commission, and I wasn't really sure how I was going to approach the commission on this, because there are two ways. One is that we don't touch anything, leave it completely alone. And then the other one for either suggestion, are you able to hear me now? Am I breaking up?
Yes.
Yeah, you're breaking up, but that's
Let
okay.
me turn my video off. That might help a little bit. Yeah, so the question I had for the commission was, and I wasn't sure whether we could remove invasives along the embankment to the Neck River or just leave it alone the way it is. And then the same thing with the inland wetlands to the south of the property. Can we remove the Phragmites? But if that's an issue, we could just leave that alone. That really doesn't matter one way or the other. But whatever the commission is more comfortable with, to expedite a possible approval. So I really need the commission's input as to how you want me to approach this, because we're open for either way. We can leave it alone completely because it doesn't affect us materially in any way, or would you allow us to remove the invasives? And John Cunningham does have a planting plan and a inland wet to restore that inland wetlands marginally, with deep approval from the state. So that's a question that I had for the commission.
I have a question. We have an existing conditions report from the wetland scientist. Has the wetland scientist reviewed this proposal and provided any comments of possible mitigation or potential impacts? You're calling out removal of invasives under the direction of the landscape designer, and you're adding 8,800 square feet of impervious parking that is proposed to not be treated or retained in any way on the property. And I don't see any of that being reviewed.
So
Or
as I said earlier, so we do have, we can mitigate the zero runoff requirement.
That's not treating parking lot pavement, Chuck. That's roof leaders. That's trying to get a net change. That's not treating any water quality for increased parking. It's more than double the amount of parking spaces that are required for the
Yeah, so let me finish then. So I did, based on what you had told me earlier, we did not have Michelle Ford go out and look at the proposed conditions report afterwards. But those the stormwater to mitigate the 8,800 square feet of additional parking, we have plenty of room to mitigate that by sloping the northern parking area, and we take those that stormwater system that we're showing for the roof leaders, which there was none previously. We can mitigate the 8,800 square feet and treat that additional parking area to the north. That can be sloped to the north if need be. The problem is we're facing is the septic system. We have to be a certain distance away from the septic. So we're limited as to what we can do for mitigation, but there are ways that we can mitigate the additional parking area. And
Do you
that's,
have that much parking? I understand that your client wants that parking, but it's not required. And if, I guess that's to be determined, when you propose, submit the drainage plan as to whether or not that can properly be treated and handled on site. If it can, I think you have to be able to explore alternatives of potentially reducing the amount of parking.
we're almost double what we need for parking for zoning, almost double. We have
I know.
but we don't, that was what my client had asked for. And that's why we're here. We're here to talk about that. So
Right.
if
It's not
if it-
consistent with the stormwater manual as far as any guidance for treating stormwater. So I guess that's my,
Right, just keep in mind that there was nothing on this site previously, so anything we do, so if we do have the additional 8,800 square feet that we can treat, anything we do will be positive at this point. Upgrading the septic system is a huge factor right now because it had been failing previously and it would never work, even though if you wanted to open up the rest as is, or if it stayed in the existing conditions, it would certainly still be there, and it would still, and that well was certainly there during when it was operating as a restaurant originally. So
right. I agree with you that there's an existing parking lot, and I'm not saying that, there's the ability to, or the requirement to treat the entire parking lot, but up until today, we didn't realize what the increase in impervious surface coverage is, or was proposed. And so knowing that 8,800 square feet, I think that would be my recommendation as staff, is to go back and try and figure out how you can properly treat and then infiltrate, if you can, and to the property. And then I guess the only other question is with the invasives, and I'll leave that to the agency to request. But my recommendation would be that we have the wetland scientist who has done the existing conditions and functions and values, but has not provided any information with respect to any proposed improvements on the property, whether they're beneficial or, or potential, impacts. I think that would be helpful to see. And even guidance, she may say there's no point in touching that slope on the west side of the river. Or she may have some good recommendations for that, or to work with John on that plan. So that's my 2 cents.
well, I guess not touching it would probably be the best overall. I mean, right now, if we're not proposing anything, we just leave it alone completely.
But that's not
See-
what your plan says.
No, that's why I'm asking the commission for guidance on this. I wasn't sure how they want to receive it, whether they do want to remove the invasives or just leave everything alone. So we don't have to ask for any permission from, if we're just going to not touch it.
Well, I think hearing from the wetland scientist who reviewed that area would be helpful to make that decision.
Well, I would imagine it would always be beneficial to remove invasives. I can't see leaving the invasives as a good thing, and replanting some native species. But then again, that would require additional permission from the agency. But I have no problem going back to the soil scientists and asking for the additional information. But we certainly have room to mitigate the stormwater, and we certainly have additional input from the soil scientists to get these wetlands, either remove the invasives or just leave them alone, either way.
Do any of the agency members have a thought or a suggestion on either of those, stormwater or invasives?
Nope.
Go ahead, Lee.
No, I don't have any. And plus, I just lost my internet, so I can't see you guys. So
Yeah, my internet went out as well. I'm hotspotting. Our power went. So I guess with the invasive, so sorry, I missed part of that. I think, well, and hopefully I'm not repeating. I think understanding better how to manage the stormwater with that many parking places is important. And if we need those, I know those are desired, but I think we definitely need more information. The invasives, that would, Chuck's asking, what do we want to do? And I guess without understanding more, I did see that whole embankment near the Neck River is covered with a lot of invasives, but I don't know. If they don't want to do anything, then I don't know why we would necessarily remove them. I mean, it's great to remove invasives, but then that's a whole management. And then how's that? It's a pretty steep slope. So how do you, maintain that? And are you going to be putting fertilizer into something that you're maintaining that's going to go directly downslope into the Neck River? So that embankment, I'm not sure what the answer is there. Part that depends what the applicant wants to do. And if nothing, then I think that's okay as well.
Yeah, TLO, you're right. It is such a steep slope. I think we might actually do more damage trying to remove those things, more disturbance. Yeah, and that's kind of why I was looking for guidance from the commission, because sometimes an applicant comes in and says we're going to remove all the invasives and plant native species, because that's what they think the commission wants to hear. So to try to placate the commission a little bit. But in this case, I don't think removing the invasives. I think that was put a note on the plan just to kind of test the water. But the applicant probably doesn't want to do anything, really. So I think that's a great suggestion. It's a steep slope, and if the commission is fine with us leaving that alone, we're all for it also.
Well, and I don't know what other people think. It's a steep slope. So if you were to remove them and plant something, you'd be having to manage, and I would definitely be recommending no fertilizer, because that's going to go just straight down. I know it's overgrown. Clipping some of them back, I guess, is fine. I don't know, but I don't. Other agency members should weigh in as well.
I agree with that. I think the slope would be a taller ask to replant that, and you've got, you'd have to put some sort of hay bale or something at the bottom to make sure during a rain that the rain doesn't bring the dirt down. There's a lot of issues with that beyond just the goodness of replacing invasives there. For the other wetland, though, the one that's next to the well below the parking, I think the majority of that is Phragmites, if I'm remembering correctly. I mean, if you guys are open to taking those Phragmites out, treating it, and then planting a native species there, I think we'd all be for that.
Yeah, it could be a wet meadow type of thing, and it's not huge, but that is the state land, right? As you said, so that has to go through DEEP.
We would have to get permission from DEEP to go ahead and do that.
It would, yeah. But you could do a little wet meadow thing that I think would be fine.
Yeah. Okay. So talk to the soil scientist about reviewing this plan and the stormwater, and see if I can reduce the parking. Okay. Once again, I have my marching orders.
Can you, while you're going through this, and John, I don't want to short you of your opportunity to go through the landscape proposal as well. I did just want to, before you get started, to make sure that you and Stevens coordinate your drawings so that what's reflected on your drawing for hardscapes and whatnot is also reflected on the civils, so that when we're looking at the plans, they're consistent. Some of those discrepancies are within areas outside of the 100-foot area, but just knowing this is going to move forward through other approval processes, it would be helpful to do that.
Aaron, I agree with you. My plan is just the preliminary plan. I was going to go through wetlands and ACA before I went to final plan. So obviously, before we go to P and Z, our Tom Stevens' office and my office, the plans will match. Okay.
Yeah, well, this plan for wetlands needs to match P and Z as well. So
Yeah. I won't go through the invasive material over the Neck River. I'm with Chuck. I think we probably leave that alone. I think to try to remove the invasives and plant native species over there is going to be a real problem. Okay. The front wetland area that's on state property, Anna was correct. It's mostly Phragmites. Myself, I use All Habitat, Dave Roche, to probably remove the invasives in that area. There is a large stand of native daily that is there that I'd probably like to leave. And then we can add other varieties of material to that wetland area. The state has already told us that we can't add any woody ornamentals. There'll be no trees, no shrubs, nothing on state land. It'll all be just herbaceous perennial, okay? I'm sure when we look at the parking area, we can come up with a plan on where that surface water is going to go. I didn't calculate what the existing pavement is on the property right now. There are two separate parking lots on that property, okay? I'm sure that we can either grade both parking lots to the center area, okay, where my 4 new shade trees is, or take part of it to the north. There's a 10-foot landscape buffer that stops the front parking area from the property line. So I think we have plenty of room to make sure that we can manage the water from the parking areas also. All right. And I won't go through the rest of the planting plan. There's not a lot we're leaving here. We're taking everything out around the building, all the shrubs. We're taking all these 4 trees down that are in the state area. And you see a note, any trees on that corner by Stonewall Lane in our property line, there's a large damaged tulip tree that's on state land. They would like that to come down. So there is going to be quite a bit of removal along Boston Post Road. The 2 large circles that are as you come into the property to the left, you see my little note that says drop-off area. Those are 2 existing Norway spruce. I think those could both stay. It's a large planted island there. I think they'd add some scale to the property, so I suggested leaving those. That would be a large planting bed. Once again, it could work as a base and we could drain water to that area if we wanted to. Well, I'm just not quite there yet with all the different stuff on the property, but we will make sure the plans match and we'll have a specific call out on all the different stuff for you. Okay. Any questions?
Nope.
Okay.
any other information that the agency is looking for before next month?
Not for me.
No.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, does anyone have internet?
Yeah.
You should have all come in person with me. I'm the only one here.
I
I
don't,
still have it in my undisclosed location.
He's in the other hallway.
I don't know what happened.
Yeah, mine's
One question I would have is if the applicant is gung ho about doubling the parking spaces, would they look into potential methods of pervious pavers?
Yeah, Joe, I was actually thinking of the whether it was overflow or employee parking, that could probably be gravel or impervious, something like that. Not
There's a
bitumen.
there's a brewery in Branford. Their outer parking spaces have these hexagonal concrete looking things where there's sand or grass in between, and it's not gravel, it's just this hexagonal cement looking parking areas, and I've never seen them anywhere until this place called Kaya's Farms, and I thought maybe this applicant could look into something like that instead of just gravel.
Well, Joe, actually, the utility companies, Eversource uses these when they pull off road. They're actually like little plastic cups that are hexagonal shaped, like a beehive looking thing. And they set these in gravel, and then they can mow right over it. Grass grows right through those things, and they're stable enough for traffic. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't reach down and touch them, so they could be plastic, but they looked like they were the same color as the medium in between. So
Yep. Yep. They
I
have
would
different
ask if they'd look
materials.
into pervious
Nope.
surface. Yep.
I agree.
Okay, well, I think you have things to do.
You're right. Thank you for that. I was getting bored.
In case you didn't have anything to do.
There you go. Okay. Thank you for your kindness.
All right,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
very much.
Okay, we'll
Thank
see you in September.
Okay, yay, we've gotten through all of our regular meeting items. So we have 3 receipts. We have, and so remember, for receipts, this is where we can think about sidewalks and where we should think about a sidewalk. And also if there is a question of significant activity. So our first is 23-48, 31 Stony Lane. This is the current iteration for Barbary Hill Farms. And it is now 6 single-family dwellings. And it looks like they've turned this into an open space conservation district.
I think that is the proposal. The application includes only the application form and some civil drawings. There's no inland wetland wetland assessment, stormwater management plan. In my opinion, the application is incomplete and is, I guess, at surface level, looking at the site plan, it would be, at this time, the agency would need to determine if this could be considered a significant activity application. Previous application for increased number of units was considered a significant activity, and the agency, as you may recall, hired third-party consultants who went through the application, provided findings and comments, and the applicant withdrew their application. So this is a new application, a reduced density development. However, I do feel that there is some missing information as required in your application process.
Yeah, I wondered about that too. It seemed pretty lacking. So do we?
It is.
It is.
So
do
you
want to receive it, or do they just bump it back and say it needs to be?
You can receive it and schedule it for you can't act on an application this evening. You can vote at your next meeting to deny an incomplete application and state the reasons on the record why you would deny that application. You can.
I'm thinking if it's incomplete, we shouldn't even be receiving it.
I think we have to. Is that right?
Yeah, you would, your application is automatically received, whether it's complete application, they paid a fee and submitted information. I don't believe it's sufficient information where the agency could adequately determine impacts to adjacent wetland and the Neck River system. However, you could you know, the challenge in deeming a significant activity is you're going to send a letter to the applicant stating that this is a significant activity and that the information needs to be submitted ahead of a public hearing. You could push out a public hearing. You have 2 months from now to push out a public hearing. And if you were going to hire a third-party consultant to assist the commission in reviewing that, they have no information to review at this point. So you're going to be waiting for new information to be submitted.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to make anything other than, of course, it needs a site walk. But so
I think it would, you know, the only thing is that you do have for a significant activity to open a public hearing and, you know, to go through that process, or if you wanted a third party consultant, you would need to have time to get that professional on board, and to be able to have comments for you and review ahead of a public hearing. And when you receive an incomplete application, it's very challenging. I think the commission could easily go through your regulations and identify where this application is deficient, and act at your next meeting. I think this is, there's going to be a lot of back and forth with the applicant asking for more information. So I think based on a couple of things, interest in general for this area and previous applications, there was interest from adjacent property owners, and the commission had specific interest in understanding impacts to that Neck River system, and where you deemed this a significant activity. I do think, you know, the number of units has been reduced, but the potential could still be there for impacts. And I don't think that would be out of line to deem this a significant activity. I think you went through a process in the last time around and received some good information from a third-party engineer reviewing the proposal, and really never got a response from the applicant, you know, addressing those comments. So it may be beneficial for the agency to have, again, professionals on your side to be able to review the application and determine potential impacts.
Right. So, but it sounds like we have, you know, in a sense, we've got kind of two choices. It's received automatically, so we can act on it, you know, and it's clearly lacking in information where we can assess this, or anybody could assess this. So it sounds like we can either act on it and say and deny because it's incomplete.
Right. That's really up to the agency. Do you want to give the applicant an opportunity to trickle in information to you ahead of a public hearing to make determination of, you know, potential impacts, or do you want to look at what's been submitted to you and say, this is an incomplete application, please resubmit when you have all of your information? And you have, you know, you do have a 2-week period where, you know, you can't take action on this application, but you can table it for your next meeting.
Okay.
For discussion or action.
Right.
Well, Aaron, would staff help us in deciding what the application is lacking between now and the next meeting?
Sure, we can do that.
And I'm kind of confused if we're going to say we act to not receive it at the next meeting because they don't have sufficient information.
Well, it's received regardless. It is received this evening, Lee, automatically.
I understood that. Then
Okay.
what would we be voting on next meeting then?
We'd be denying it because it was incomplete. If we could deny it because it's incomplete, that could be an action next month.
Then what happens?
Well, then hopefully they get the information and they would give it to us all at once and not in pieces.
If it's, we've received it, we think it's incomplete and we're going to vote on it at the next meeting, is there any value in having a site walk or hiring anybody or scheduling public hearings at this point in time?
You could postpone that decision to your next meeting. You've done that before. Now, I assume the agency, you've all walked the site. I don't know that you would necessarily need to re-walk the site to make a determination at this point to deem, I would wait until you had more information to walk the site, I think, where the applicant could then stake out the locations and have their professionals join you on the site walk, and you would have enough information to make your decision. I'm not saying you shouldn't
Well, that seems
walk
to
the
make
site,
more,
but I don't know that you have to do it this month, I guess is what I'm saying, Lee.
to me, that seems to make more sense. And I mean, without seeing what they're going to submit, it also makes sense to have our engineering consult or our, the consultants that we hired to look at the application, look at it again. I just am conscious that we got to make sure we allow enough time for that, right? So.
Yeah. So, Erin, I guess, if we don't make a decision about a significant activity tonight and we postpone that, I mean, we do have, it's received and we have, the clock starts.
Right,
But
so you would have 65 days to open a public hearing. So next month is 30. If you decide, I can give you a going through your section of the regulations as far as what it's kind of broad, it's section 7.5 or 7 is your application requirements. And it basically says no application shall be deemed complete unless it shall be in such form and contain such information as the agency deems necessary for a fair and informed determination of the issues. The agency shall inform the applicant of such necessary information. So we can do that for your next meeting, is go through section 7 and then we can have a discussion at your next meeting as far as what all of the information is that is not included in the application document. And you'll then have an opportunity. You can either request that information from the applicant and give them the option of providing that, or you can use that information in a resolution for denial.
Okay.
If the applicant is willing to submit that information, and the agency has an opportunity to at least review the plans at that point and look at them. If you feel that's a significant activity, you can make that determination at that meeting.
Okay.
And then do we have 35 days or do we have 65 days?
You can, if you feel that you need third-party review, you could always request an extension from the applicant to open the public hearing, an additional 35 days. I would think at this point with the applicant in the what has been submitted, that they should be more than willing to work with the agency since they provided this to you with as little information as it has.
Yeah. It had.
The option is not very good. Their other alternative option, either,
Right. Okay.
So
it sounds like we just let this one go, and this we don't do anything and we'll just talk about this next month and see. Right, if they.
We'll compile a list of what's deficient in the application.
Right, and let them know. Yeah. Yes, that would be great. I had questions that weren't answered.
Okay.
In that same month, can we have initial discussions? Should we have initial discussions with the outside, the engineers that we're hiring to tell them what's coming, or should we just wait on that?
No, you'd have to make that determination if you're going to consider it a significant activity, and if you need a third-party consultant, whether for engineering or wetland
All right.
scientists.
But
So,
that can be next month as well.
sure.
Good.
Because if we did that tonight, we don't have.
That's
They don't
right.
have
That's right. Oh, it's getting late. It was a stupid question. So
Yeah, no,
Well,
no,
there's
no.
no information, if you post an RFP for a third-party consultant and you post the application documents, the professionals are gonna have more questions than answers
Yeah,
of what
there's-
they're
Right.
reviewing. There's nothing,
Well-
there's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay.
there's
Okay,
missing information that they need in their reviews.
Enough said. I get it.
I know it's late, so all right, so.
So we'll
still
just table that.
Yeah, we'll table that. Do we need to vote on that? No, because it's already
Sure.
received. Or-
It's received today. You can make a motion to table that to 9/11.
I move that we table application 2348 to our next meeting, which is on 9/11.
I'll second.
Okay.
All right, all in favor? Okay, so our next receipt is 23-49, 24 Old Schoolhouse Road. This is a single family dwelling and septic and well and everything in the whole thing, if I am not mistaken, is within the regulated activity area.
This doesn't include filling of inland wetlands as well, this application.
Yes. Right. Does that say
So-
it there? It says it on it doesn't say it here, but it's in the application that it's like
It
point.
is, and I agree that the language should say, our description on our agenda, I think, could include, or should include, excuse me, that
Filling.
there is a permanent loss of wetland.
Right.
Does it say how many cubic yards would go in? Like,
It's
is it more
point-
than two
It's like
trucks?
300 and something square feet, isn't it? I believe.
Yeah. Let me see.
Yeah, let me zoom in. Hold on a second here.
It's 350 square feet.
Yeah, it's a small amount of area, but it is an area, it is a loss. This is one of the last unimproved roads in Madison. The majority of this property is wet. It's in between Mungertown and, is it Nortontown?
Yeah, but I guess what I found, I mean, it's the whole thing is within the regulated activity.
Oh, the entire property, yes, 100%. I agree.
So,
And so they've, this is, I don't think that's a bad thing to, I mean, it does include a filling of a wetland for grading purposes to achieve that, this just grading at the rear of the property, at the rear of the house. Yes, I think there is potential for you to find that a significant activity under section 7.6 of your regulations, because there is a filling of wetland.
I do think even though it is a small, yep, go ahead.
Yeah,
Go-
that's real. It's up to you, I guess, discretion how much you're looking to.
I'm at a loss for not seeing this site plan within the 800 pages, but since it's
I have to show you,
everything-
so when you look at on the website, just as a side note here, when you're on the web page, go to the overview and not the packet. And
Yep.
then you'll be able to see the agenda and individual documents for each application. Otherwise, you know, the packet itself serves as the document storage, but you have to go to the overview for ease of use. Unfortunately,
Alright,
with the
no,
new
that makes sense.
software, that's the only way. But I have the site
Yeah.
plan. I'll share it for you, Joe.
So I guess, yes, I mean, it seems like when you put an entire house in septic and you're filling wetlands, that's within the regulated activity. And I haven't walked this site, but I know the area, it's pretty wet.
They're
It's,
grading, yeah. Yep.
yeah,
Hmm.
I guess I would say it's non-trivial at the least.
This is like that lot off of Overbrook that we went to.
I mean, this
Yeah.
is what, this is one of these existing
Yeah,
building
a lot
lots
of
that
record.
is vacant. So they come up. And
So, oh, there it is, okay. Okay, so,
Well,
I
so
would-
I guess, go ahead, Joe.
okay, I'm gonna, so I'm gonna just say based on the potential impacts on the wetlands and the potential fill, I hate to make a new house construction be a public hearing, but I think this is a pretty significant activity.
I agree, just based on the permanent loss of wetlands. To me, right off the bat, that's significant activity.
And this is
Well-
gonna require a lot of low impact development designs to show us if they really want this.
I agree. I think it's a significant activity. The permanent loss of wetlands
That's a
And-
huge wetland. Yep.
and having, yeah, constructing everything. I know we have a lot of existing structures that predate regulations that we do all the time, but we have regulations, so I don't know. I agree. I think it's significant. And I think we should do a sidewalk.
yes.
Yeah.
I'm in.
You're in? Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that application 23-49 for 24 Old Schoolhouse Road be considered a significant activity and scheduled for a public hearing in September.
Sidewalk.
Okay. Let's see when your site walk is.
The 19th, I think.
Yes, Saturday, the 19th.
Does someone want a second? Joe?
I'll second that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All in favor? Raise your hands. Say aye.
Hi.
Okay. And then here we are back to Wildwood. 23-50 Wildwood Avenue, Lot 3. They want a modification to relocate the septic system.
Yes. So I believe that all of you were here for the site walk on them. This is the furthest lot in the subdivision, at the end of the driveway. Yes, there was a septic system, septic area that was previously proposed by the applicant, and they're looking to relocate that. Kind of goes beyond the scope of a field change, which is why the applicant is before you again for a modification. The question is whether or not you need to walk the site again, or if you're comfortable just reviewing the plans and going through that presentation from the applicant in September.
Site is cleared now, so.
September or August?
The site walk would be in August, but the meeting discussion would be
okay.
September. Yeah.
Okay. I wonder if. And this wasn't the subdivision Todd Anderson brought us on with the two little vernal pools.
No,
is
no,
it?
no, this is
No,
years.
that was Kelsey. I'm sorry, Opening Hill.
Yep.
Opening Hill. No, this was a couple
This
years
is
ago.
Off of Sheep
Oh.
Pasture
Sheep
Road.
pasture.
Oh, way back. Okay, I
Yeah,
missed that one. Okay.
this is where they wanted, they
This
have
had extensive landscaping plans that went back
Yep.
and forth with the agency. And shared rain gardens that were in between each lot,
Yep. You were new.
one shared driveway.
Yep.
I don't
Yep.
know. Were you? Do you think this is section 13 level, Aaron?
No, well, I think it's big enough, at least from the, I mean, that's what Aaron just said. I think what it looked like on the site plan, that it was more than an agent approval. Is that,
Okay.
Well, my concern with an agent approval is that the original site development plan was an agency approval. And so modifications to a plan that were done by the agency, in my opinion, should go back to the agency unless it was something minor enough, you know, an invert of a
just-
pipe or something small.
So this isn't minor enough. We'll take it. Okay.
I'm pushing it to you.
Okay.
yeah, I mean, yeah, because they're putting it, yeah, no,
I don't foresee this as a complicated review. It's really, you know, more of a formality where you see where the originally proposed septic is. You listen to their engineers as to why they're proposing to relocate that. I think they had some trouble with some of their test pits that didn't work with ledge and things of that nature, which is why they're looking to relocate that. So
so the
That's-
question is, do we want to do a site walk or not?
yeah, do you want to see it again, or are you comfortable just reviewing the plans?
I'm comfortable reviewing the plans.
Anna or Lee, do you? Anna, have you
Um,
seen?
I have not, but I can review aerials and whatnot if everybody else is comfortable. Not doing a site walk.
I'm comfortable. I was on the first one. I'm comfortable not doing one also.
Okay.
On that note, I'd like to make a motion. We take in application 23-50 for the lot 3 of Wildwood Avenue and schedule that for our next regular meeting in August.
September.
September.
Killing me,
September
Joe.
Oh, September. Okay, yes. It's August already.
I'll second.
Okay. And I guess that public hearing I motion should go to October. Oops.
No, that's okay. That was correct for September. You can get a public hearing in September.
Okay.
All right, all in
Yeah.
favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
I'm getting drowsy.
Okay. All right, so we have minutes. I had just one minor, of course, I'm not gonna be able to find it. It's not a big deal. It was in one of the where we were gonna do a site walk. It just said sidewalk.
Oh,
Which I-
instead of site walk? Okay.
It's item 7, item 7.
Is that right? I thought, oh, but I like that, but that was the only,
That's the only one I saw too, 2337.
okay. And then, the sidewalk minutes, I didn't see anything in either. Did anybody else have any comments on the,
Nope.
or,
I only read the bit about the school to be ready for tonight, but I wasn't at that meeting.
okay. Well, all in favor of approving, can we,
Yeah. Go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say, can we just approve both of these? Or do we have enough people who are gonna vote on both of these? minutes?
I
let's
think
see,
for July 10th, only Joe is abstaining.
Right.
Is that, yep, so that you could do. You might have to do 2 votes because are you abstaining from the July 15th as well, Joe?
Yes,
Or were you
I was
there?
not there.
Walk. You didn't
Yeah.
walk.
Oh, so you could abstain from both, as long as the 3 of you are interested in voting in favor, they could carry.
I'm out.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna make a motion that, and we can see how this goes, that we approve the minutes for July 10th, 2023 and July 15th, 2023 sidewalk meetings.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Anybody abstaining?
I'm abstaining.
Okay,
Like a delayed reaction. I think you're slowing down, Joe.
getting there. Okay, so in the Wetlands Chair's remark, I don't have any comment. I mean, I would just say thank you for persevering through internet and everything. This was a long meeting.
I think September will be long as well. We didn't get rid of too much.
No, that's
Only a few.
it's a little sad. But I thought, everyone had good comments, and I thought we had, good discussion and understanding of our applications.
We're too clingy.
Yeah.
For you. I have one question, if I may. Do any of you have an interest in attending in person? Because if not, as much as I love sitting in the conference room alone, I'm more than happy to switch back to Zoom. But I'd like to know for if we're going to have, we will have a public hearing. I want to make sure we advertise that correctly. I know Lee and Martin expressed an interest in being remote. Anna, I don't know if you prefer remote or just generally, but if you could give us some guidance, we'll adjust accordingly.
Yeah, you hit it on the head for me. I tend to like remote a lot better. That way I can look at the plans while we're talking. And so, yes, there's some issues with my microphone and whatnot, but I still prefer remote.
Okay, thanks.
I think pre-baby, I would have said, yeah, let's do it in person, but circumstances change, so remote is better.
Okay.
I'm flexible, but like I've got sick people here, and I felt like I didn't want to infect people. So I mean, I like Zoom, and I don't know what feedback you're getting, Erin, but I feel like it's easier for applicants and attendees because even if they have to have their Zoom open, they're not sitting in town campus waiting for us. It's 10:30, almost 10:40. So I think it's helpful. I know it would be hybrid.
Right.
But I feel like, it's
But hybrid tonight meant nobody showed up here, so.
I know.
Right. Yeah, everybody attended virtually. So, and it really is up to you. You may not wish to do that now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would probably do Zoom mostly. It's easier. I know I don't know. And Joe, what do you think? We only have 4 of us tonight.
I've always
Right.
favored going back to the conference room, but now I'd feel really weird being there with Erin, just 2 of us.
Thanks a lot.
I'm here, I'm just in another room.
I made her go in the office.
My big thing is not getting hard plans in my hands anymore. It's like, why did we stop doing mailings?
Paper, they've cut the paper usage that we have here.
It's a lot of that's expensive. You know the cost of a stamp now, Joe?
It's more on the applicants submitting the plans and then we get them.
Yeah, we don't, well, yeah,
I
that's,
could be here
we
looking
had
at the school plan.
historically, we have provided them, so.
Yep.
that's if we went back paper, that's what we would have to do with ask them to provide.
Right.
Oh, of course. The way it used
And
to
I
be.
think that would be if it's in person. If we were meeting in person where you weren't
Right.
able to use a computer and you needed to look at plans, we would do them. But if we're only virtual, we're only going to be giving you virtual plans and not collecting the paper. We're moving towards trying to take all of our applications in digitally anyways and just have one set. We're buried in paper and about to embark on tens of thousands of dollars worth of scanning to eliminate our paper.
Yep, I get it.
So would,
Okay.
I'm happy to poll the rest of our members who are not here and reach out to Bob and Tom to see if they would prefer. But so far, the consensus I'm hearing is that we're gonna remain Zoom and not really a need for hybrid at this point.
Yep.
Yeah, but I think it's fair to reach out to the people who aren't here. Because Joe could, he could swing, they could be a swing.
I'm not gonna go to town hall to watch site plans on a screen when I can do it here. So I'm pro Zoom.
Okay. Any other comments, Erin? Anything else?
That was it.
Okay, well, thank you. And thank you for you and Maria, the staff comments and resolutions, draft resolutions were super helpful and
Yep.
very much appreciated.
Yes, yes.
Glad to help.
Okay.
I make a
Thanks
motion
for,
to adjourn the meeting.
I second.
all right, 10:45. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a great